Thank you very much, and good evening to members. Good evening to guests, and good evening to everybody online to this meeting of East Cambridgeshire District Council. And I'm your chairman, Mark Goldsack, and I'm going to lead you through tonight's affairs. Thank you. We start with agenda item number 1, which is public question time. Thank you, Tracy. So we have some. So questions submitted they'll just be checked by the monitoring officer before actually placing. Okay, the first one of these questions is a statement. I'm very pleased to be joined in person by Nicholas Acklam, who I would invite to the desk, please, and to put your statement to us. Thank you. There is a microphone in front of you. If you could press the right-hand button. There you go.
Good evening, Council. My name is Nicholas Acklam, and as the Chair has just said, I'm here to make a statement in respect of item 11 on your agenda this evening, which is the adoption of the Reach Neighbourhood Plan. I've lived in Reach for 32 years and was involved in the production of the Neighbourhood Plan. It's taken 5 years to get to this point, and the route wasn't always smooth. It's therefore great, and I'm very pleased that the plan was strongly endorsed by my fellow villagers in the recent referendum, where we had a very strong turnout of 58%, and of those who turned out, 66% voted in favour. The Reach Neighbourhood Plan usefully supplements East Cambridgeshire District Council's local plan, identifying in details those qualities that make Reach a special place to live and which residents wish to preserve, whilst enabling modest, appropriate and sustainable development. The plan also provides a foundation on which improvements to our neighbourhood, as identified by residents, can be implemented. One such example is the Reach Nature Recovery Plan, which already forms part of the district's nature recovery strategy, but which depends heavily on policies laid out in the neighbourhood plan to be successful. It follows that I commend Reach Neighbourhood Plan to councillors, to the council, and ask that you formally adopt it as part of the development plan of the district. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming tonight and for your spoken word. It's always most welcome, and I think it shows your commitment to your cause. So thank you very much for that. Obviously, we've got this as a later adoption at number point 11 on our agenda tonight, and you're welcome to stay with us for that debate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. So we'll move to the second question. Tracy, if you could read, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We've had a question from Charmaine Switzer. Unfortunately, she can't be here tonight. And it's a question to the leader of the council. I have read about the Bereavement Centre project, which I think is good use of the land at Meeple, and I wanted to give my thoughts to the council about it. I believe that this will be a fantastic local facility for the families of East Cambs. I particularly appreciate that the facility is for all people from different faiths and no faith at all. The images I saw of the proposed building look dignified and the surroundings look beautiful and peaceful. I really like the idea of natural burials and a pet cemetery being included, because many people would like to be buried near all their loved ones, including dearly treasured pets. I also like the idea that my carbon footprint will be minimised even after my death, with the electric cremators, renewable energy and a shorter trip to Meeple. Older people trying to get to their friend's funeral often have to rely on favours from friends and family, and with a local centre it will be much easier for people to get there. I really hope that this project gets to go ahead. My question is, Will the council work with local people to ensure that the inside of the bereavement centre is special, that it reflects its surroundings and that it offers the atmosphere and services that the people of East Cambs want to see?
And that's a question to the leader, yes?
Yes.
Okay, Anna.
Thank you for your question and for your support of the project. Yes, of course, we want to work really hard to make the bereavement centre special. We want to make it feel different and to respect and reflect its special surroundings and to deliver the services that local people want in the way that they want them. This is a community facility and it will belong to the people of East Cambridgeshire. So it's really important that they feel a sense of ownership and a sense of love for the facility. And we will work with the public to understand this and to deliver a community facility and service that they and we can be proud of.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. And back to you, Tracy, for question number 3.
Thank you, Chairman. And this is from Peter D. Harvey, and unfortunately he can't be here this evening either. I would like to table a question at full council meeting. Unfortunately, I can't send it. Oh, sorry, I'm looking down the bottom here. Question to the leader of the council. Given a presumption in favour of commercial best practice and due diligence, can the leader of the council advise over what contingency plans are in place and or have been considered in the event the speculative commercial venture, namely the proposed crematorium at Meeple, is unsuccessful?
Thank you, Councillor Bailey.
Thank you again for the question. And I'd very much like to start by reassuring the questioner and the public that extensive due diligence has been carried out on this project. The plans for the proposed bereavement centre have been developed over several years now, and we've worked with independent industry experts to produce a detailed business case, which includes a needs analysis, a full competition appraisal, and a cost appraisal for both construction and operating costs. The business case has been robustly tested and is positive. There are no borrowing costs in the plan, so that really de-risks it. And because of this work, I don't actually consider this to be a speculative commercial venture whatsoever, and I really don't think it's accurate to describe it as such. The plans we're considering this evening have been well thought out and carefully modelled to ensure that the bereavement centre is financially sustainable. The analysis that has been undertaken demonstrates that even with the prudent assumptions we've made around the number of cremations and the lower charges compared with other crematoria, the proposed bereavement centre, which is a community facility, is financially viable and the business case is positive.
Thank you. That completes the questions. So we will move on to item 2. Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. We have apologies from Councillor Horgan and Councillor Allison and Councillor Christine Whelan.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you very much.
Also Councillor Caroline Shepherd and Councillor Rocket.
Carol Shepherd. Rocket. Okay. Thank you for that, Councillor Dupre. So if we can move on then to declarations of interest. Before we do this, I'll just call on our monitoring officer just for a quick word.
Thank you, Chairman. Some members have actually queried, because we are making a decision tonight on the council tax. I just wanted to give some advice that being a council taxpayer or being eligible for a discount under for council tax support are pecuniary interests, but they're not disclosable pecuniary interests, and therefore councillors do not need to seek a dispensation from me in order to participate in discussions or vote. Thank you.
So I think that makes that aspect. Councillor Dupre.
Sorry, I'm not sure whether I was going to preempt what you were going to say. The other issue, of course, is the independent remuneration panel deliberations, where the same issue about the interest of all members may also apply.
I think I can say from the chair that covers exactly the same situation, but you're absolutely right. So with that knowledge now shared in the room and online, is there any other declarations of interest or any specific declarations of interest? I'm seeing none. Thank you. So we'll move on to the minutes, item agenda number 4. There is a slight amendment to the minutes. I think there was a misvoting declared where somebody was missed out and somebody was voted both for and against it. That's now been tidied up in the minutes. Assuming everybody, could you raise your hand if you have an issue against accepting the minutes? I will sign them off afterwards then. That's very good. I'm now going to go on to chairman's announcements. Chairman's announcements, I do have a few. I'm going to start with announcing that I'm very pleased that the council has received its silver accreditation from Investors in the Environment, demonstrating a commitment to reducing our environmental impact and to the continual improvement of our sustainability performance. The report highlights the team at ECDC has maintained a good environmental management system and continue to drive down emissions in many key areas, I apologise. East Cambs District Council has achieved an excellent reduction in paper use driven by monthly updates, setting annual targets and champions within departments. And the Green Team has organised carbon literacy training available to all members of staff, which has increased engagement and empowered participants. I'm extremely happy with the results, and I'm especially grateful to our Green Team members who have been so supportive and engaged throughout the year. A copy of the accreditation report outlining our achievements as well as the next steps is available from Emma Jane Danielson, Climate Change and Natural Environment Senior Officer. Well done to everybody involved with that. The next announcement is I'm also very proud to hear Craig Smith and his build and control team have received a national recognition for their work and relationship with Soham-based building control agent Andrew Fleet. Together they won Best Partnership at the Local Authority Build and Control Awards, which recognise excellence in collaboration, communication and overall partnership working practices. A further thank you to me for everybody involved in a very credible performance there. On Chairman's announcements, I would like to make another couple of announcements. I myself have been busy attending various things. I'm not going to list them, but one of them of note of interest, I did attend a Holocaust Memorial Day put on by Huntingdon County Council, and I found that a very moving event. I was very proud to represent the district at that particular one. Excuse me a second. I would also like to say, with forward to the meeting tonight, we've got a very thick agenda in front of us. I'm going to invite members to think about what they're going to say. If it's been said before, think again and try and, well, I will keep you to the time, but if you can keep it shorter, I'm sure I speak for everybody in the room and even those long-suffering people that will be watching, that's the best practice to do. So let's have a good effort at that, and I'm sure I can rely on everybody. That completes the chairman's announcements. Thank you very much. Item 6, to receive petitions.
None, Chair.
There are no petitions. Item 7, the notice of motions under Procedure Rule 10.
None.
None, Chair. Number 8, to answer questions from members. We have 3 questions from members. Okay. Right, so the first question is from Councillor Lucius Vellacott. Lucius.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The Combined Authority Mayor is set to raise his precept by 200%. Whilst the service linking Soham and Cambridge in the proposals is welcomed, my residents in Wickham will not see any benefit. And those living in the village need to access all their local services in Soham. I always make the point that with access to Soham train station, just one bus would link Wickham with the world, and the world with an internationally renowned nature reserve at Wickham Fen, and more importantly, the brilliant Maidhead pub. So will the leader of the council push the mayor to examine the viability of a 2-hourly service, at least linking Wickham and Soham in his new proposals?
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Vellacott, for your question. I didn't support the Mayor's precept when he introduced it for the first time in 2023, and I didn't support the 200% increase to it this year. And I did note at the time that of the East Cambridgeshire residents that responded to the CPCA consultation on the precept, 66% were not willing to pay it to fund buses. And in Fenland, in fact, that figure was 77%. And I think perhaps that's because despite the Mayor's promises about levelling up public transport in the rural and deprived areas, he's really made no progress on that to date. And I'm afraid we are only in this position because of the chaos and dysfunctionality of the first 2 years at the Combined Authority. All other combined authorities and dozens of other transport authorities got tens of millions, and in fact some got hundreds of millions to improve bus services. And unfortunately the CPCA got nothing in that round of funding. And as far as I can tell, really now, this failure is being charged to local taxpayers. Devolution for me should be about receiving funding and powers down from government, not a new excuse to tax local people. And frankly, it was unnecessary. And not least, the Mayor continues to support unsustainable bus routes, in one case costing the taxpayer a staggering £250 in public subsidy per return passenger journey. There are promises that these high-cost routes will be improved to reach the benchmark level of £24 per return journey in public subsidy, but that you can see there's a long way to go. However, Labour and Lib Dem board members at the CPCA did all support the 200% precept increase, and so now obviously we've got to try and make the best of it here in East Cambs. 3 new routes are proposed for East Cambs from the precept increase, as well as improvements on the B1102 corridor. And in addition, there's also a plan to use some government funding for a demand responsive transport pilot in East Cambs. Now, unfortunately, as you've pointed out, none of those proposals currently include Wicken. So I will, of course, take this up with the CPCA to see what's possible and report back. And I do hope that the new funds raised through the Mayor's precept are not simply swallowed up rescuing commercially run services, but with the recent announcement by Stagecoach to make significant changes to their Littleport to Cambridge number 9 service, things haven't begun well on that front, and I fear we may see more of that to come. So what new services East Cambs residents actually get from this new local taxation remains to be seen, but I will, of course, do what I can to make sure that Wicken is given proper consideration.
Thank you. Question number 2 is from Councillor Bill Hunt of Streatham Ward to the Chair of Finance and Assets Committee, Councillor Alan Sharp. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. At the meeting of the Finance and Assets Committee on the 25th of January this year, doubt was cast on whether or not Streatham Parish Council had provided a letter of support for the Link project by Streatham and Wilburton Community Land Trust. Indeed, I noted that all the Liberal Democrats at that meeting, with the exception of one abstention, voted against providing funding for this project, which includes a new GP surgery. Can the Chairman of Finance and Assets Committee confirm that Streatham Parish Council did in fact provide a letter of support for the project? Thank you.
Councillor Sharp.
Apologies. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hunt, for your question. Following the meeting of the Finance and Assets Committee on the 25th of January and the discussion regarding the Streatham Link project growth and infrastructure fund application, the Council received a request from the Chief Operating Officer of Mearside Medical requesting that additional information be provided to members of the Finance and Assets Committee to clarify their position regarding the new Streatham Link facility, including new GP premises for Streatham branch of Hadnam Surgery. The information stated that the Chief Operating Officer of Mearside Medical made clear in her original email to Streatham Parish Council requesting the letter of support that a key justification for new premises for Streatham branch being approved by the NHS is that it is integrated in community facilities that support wider health and well-being. The email from the Chief Operating Officer is to Streatham Parish Council mentions the Streatham and Wilburton CLT and their work preparing a revised proposal and planning application for the new community facilities in Streatham, which includes new GP premises for the Streatham branch of Hadnam Surgery, that the CLT has now taken on all responsibility and risk associated with delivering and maintaining this new facility, and states that Mearside Medical are working closely with them to secure the capital funding required to deliver the build. It is clear in the email thread that the Chief Operating Officer provided that all parish councillors were copied in on the email, and that the support letter provided explicitly recognised the importance of the GP premises being embedded in such a community facility. She requested that the email thread and attached letter of support be shared with all of those who were present at the Finance and Assets Committee meeting, so that there is no ambiguity as to the ask that was made of Streatham Parish Council, as well as the essential nature of the proposal to securing the resumption of healthcare services in Streatham. And I know this email was sent to all members of Finance and Assets. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Sharp. The third and final question from members is from councillor Martin Goodall to the leader of the council, councillor Anna Bailey.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, myself and some of the residents of Littleport and in the wider area are upset to hear that Stagecoach are making large reductions to the number 9 bus service in April. This will mean a massive loss of service to the residents of Littleport, especially those who cannot drive, requiring to get an appointment at the walk-in medical facilities at the former RAF Hospital, the Princess of Wales, or access to Ely for day-to-day tasks, as shopping or visiting friends and family. I'm aware that Councillor Bailey has been in discussions with the officers of the combined authority. Can the leader of the council please give us an update on what the CPCA is planning to do to restore the service for my residents and the residents of other wards on this route?
Thank you, councillor Goodall. Leader Anna Bailey.
Thank you, councillor Goodall, for your question. Yeah, I've met with Stagecoach about their proposed changes to the number 9 service from Littleport to Cambridge, which will see a reduction of 3 buses to 1 on that route. And I think it's fair to say the biggest impact is for Littleport residents is being the loss of the most of the off-peak buses from Littleport to Ely. They're planning to maintain the commuter times. And the changes are due to, as you said, to happen in mid-April. I have met with CPC officers about this, and they've agreed to work up a plan and a timetable for a service to be tendered by CPCA to work around the operating hours of the reduced Stagecoach service. This will need to be checked for legality and would need to be put out to tender. I've also raised the need for ticketing cooperation if this goes ahead, to make sure that people can use their tickets interchangeably on the 2 services, so that if you buy a return, you can get on the other service when you come home. I've not yet had any further information back from the CPCA, but I will keep local members updated when I do. And interested parties should note that Stagecoach are holding a public meeting at 6 o'clock tomorrow, Wednesday, 21st of February, at Ely Museum in the upstairs room. So anyone wishing to hear more about the changes to the number 9 can attend.
Thank you very much. That moves us on to item number 9, the Independent Remuneration Panel Report. And I think it's Tracy to introduce this.
Thank you, Chairman. As a good proportion of you will know, because you did engage either through questionnaires or being interviewed by the panel, the Independent Remuneration Panel have conducted a full review of members' allowances. The Chairman was hoping to be with us tonight, but unfortunately can't make it. So if you don't mind, I've got a short speech from him that he'd like me to read out.
Sorry, just for the avoidance of doubt, this is the chairman of the Independent Remuneration
That's
Panel.
Richard Tyler, the
Thank you.
independent chairman, that's right. So this is from Richard. This is my 4th time on the panel, having started in 2012. And again, I was well supported by Margaret Clark, Stanley Curtis and Richard Powell. And we received impartial advice from Tracy Cooper, which was invaluable. Thank you. Didn't pay him, honestly. This time, we were all very pleased with the response of the council members to our questionnaire, which has helped us to make a full understanding of the work done by them and also their concerns. We also felt that those councillors who attended our interviews, either in person or by Zoom, set out how they felt that things could be improved. It became quite clear that the reduction in councillors meant that those still here had additional responsibilities. Virtually every councillor, both new ones and experienced ones, stressed that they had an enormous amount of reading to do when attending committee meetings. The new members, also confirmed by the more senior members, said that every day they were contacted by members of the public in the street, etc., sometimes even when walking their dogs and taking their partners out for a meal. In addition, members of the public don't realise how hard councillors work, how much work they do, and the complexity of the work you all do. I think that all of the new councillors did not realise how much they would have to do, and that both politicals need to improve the information they give to prospective candidates in that regard. You receive far less remuneration than other councils and are doing a fantastic job. I hope you accept our recommendations, as I believe the reasons behind them are all clearly explained. I have enjoyed my time on the panel, but now having reached my 80th year, I will not be standing again. Richard Tyler.
I think the first thing I'd like to do from the chair is propose a vote of thanks to Richard for everything he's done, and I think I'm seeing absolutely nods right across the floor here. So if we can make sure that that is noted professionally as well as in writing to the gentleman, I'd like to thank him for his services. Okay, first and foremost, we're going to move to a proposer of this report, and I'm very happy to propose this from the chair, and with a seconder.
Happy to second, Chair. Reserve my right.
Okay, that's going to open up the debate then. Would anybody like to speak on the matter? Councillor Dupre.
Thank you, Chair. In general, I think that if we ask a panel of independent people to consider the allowances that should be paid to councillors and to report their findings, we should accept them. Not to do so sets a precedent for councillors to invent their own allowances schemes, which is precisely what the independent panel system was introduced at national level to avoid. And that's what happened on Cambridgeshire County Council in 2017 when Conservative councillors rejected the recommendations of their independent panel and voted through an allowances scheme of their own devising. This increased the council allowances budget by a whopping £185,000, mostly diverted into the pockets of Conservative councillors. We should not open the doors to that sort of abuse. In particular, though, I think we should support these recommendations because they seek to address some important issues. These include trying to make it easier for those with caring responsibilities, such as parents of young children, to take part in public life, something I believe to be very important if this council is to be truly representative of its residents. The recommendations also stipulate that councillors can claim travel expenses only from their normal residence. It is rumoured that one member of the county council, not from this authority, now lives in Thailand, and it's true that these changes would still enable someone in that position in East Cambs to claim the airfare from Bangkok, if that is where they were living. But it is a step in the right direction, though I personally think it could have gone further. The independent panel has listened to the evidence it has received and come up with sensible recommendations, which I believe we should support.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre. Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, briefly, Chair, thank you. Hooray, we have some unity on an independent remuneration panel report. I think it's a happy day. It hasn't happened in the past like that. But I want to just formally say thank you very much to the panel. It's always a massive pleasure, actually, to meet the IRP panel and to chat about what we do. And they have a really good, deep understanding, I think, of the workload that people do take on to do this role, which can sometimes feel like a thankless task, but also offers massive well-being rewards and being able to do things for your community. It's always very difficult to vote on your own pay. I think, I'm probably right in saying across this chamber that it's not a comfortable thing to be doing at all. But we are required by law to have an independent remuneration panel every 4 years. And we have to do it. I have learnt to my cost that you do fiddle with recommendations at your great peril. And then, as Councillor Dupre has said, there are some important changes in the recommendations around caring duties and that sort of thing. So I'm also happy to, agree with Councillor Dupre that we accept these recommendations in full and to thank all the panel, but particularly Richard for his very long service. He's been practically part of an institution in the meeting rooms downstairs in reception for very, very many years. And I've always looked forward to meeting with him and chatting. So thank you to them all.
Thank you. Anybody else want to take part in the debate on this? Okay, you reserved your right, David. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to reiterate, if you've got an independent remuneration panel that makes recommendations, that's what we should be accepting. And I'd also like to echo my thanks to all the members of that panel, and especially Richard.
Thank you, Councillor Chairman Brown. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Well, as I propose it, I get the last word on this, and I think I'm going to set a precedent tonight to not repeat what's been said by other people. So I'm seeing general acceptance of this right across the table. So that motion is carried. So we're going to move on to the item 10, the polling districts, polling places and polling stations review. And I think Adrian is here to lead us through this. Welcome, Adrian.
Thank you, Chairman. The report before council relates to the polling district places and stations review. The council must undertake this review every 5 years to ensure the arrangements for electors to vote is suitable and accessible for all. As part of the review, a consultation was undertaken to enable any interested parties to comment on the proposals which are outlined in the review document. A few responses were received as shown in Appendix 2. We note the comments from the City of Ely Council relating to Ely North, and due to the ongoing construction of dwellings in that area, it's too early to make a decision on whether to change the current arrangements to accommodate the increasing number of electors in that area. The situation will obviously be monitored with an expected further review at the appropriate time. Overall, the current arrangements for polling districts, places and stations remain suitable for our electors for future elections, referendums and polls, with a few minor amendments. The first amendment relates to polling district HI3. This small polling district was created in 2019, but was an anomaly due to the fact that its ward boundary and parliamentary constituency boundaries were not coterminous, meaning they did not match. Due to the recent change in the parliamentary constituency boundary, it is now proposed to actually amalgamate HI3 with polling district HI1. Electors from HI3 will not be inconvenienced by this, as they already use the same polling station as HI1. The second amendment relates to the issues with Ely North. As part of the Princess of Wales Hospital used to be used as a polling station, but is now no longer available. As no other place has yet been found to accommodate a permanent polling station, it is recommended to make the whole of the polling district the polling place. This will provide the returning officer with flexibility to use any suitable area or building for future elections. Also, in order to ensure that should any polling station become unavailable for any reason, that voters would not be able to vote in the democratic process, it is recommended to also give the returning officer the flexibility to use suitable alternatives should the needs arise. So in conclusion, Chairman, the current arrangements, it is recommended that the current arrangements, excepting the two amendments, be approved. Polling district HI3 be amalgamated with HI1. Ely North be designated as the polling place, and that the returning officer uses suitable alternative polling stations should the need arise. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Thank you very much. Anybody got anything to say on the matter? Have we got any debate on this? Thank you. Would you like to go?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm one of the.
I apologise. Can I interrupt? It's entirely my fault. I do apologise.
Sorry.
I need a proposal and a second before I allow him to speak. That is entirely my fault. It's even more embarrassing that this is going to be proposed by myself and seconded by.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much. I will bring you back in with apologies. Thank you very much.
That's perfectly all right, Chair. Thank you. I'm one of the ward members for Ely West, and I do have some concerns about the Methodist Chapel. The hall itself is fine. The difficulty is parking. There is, well, there's something of a parking problem in the whole area, and there is specifically a problem with regard to less able people. I wonder if the officer could kindly see if any alternative location is available, or otherwise do something to address the parking issues on polling day. Thank you.
Is that something you can answer, Adrian?
I'll try, Chairman.
We appreciate it.
You have indeed, Councillor. Yeah, we can actually have a look around for alternatives. We do that as a matter of course anyway, obviously, because we look at the situation with the polling stations we've got, and with increased electorate, as you know, the numbers are going up quite a lot. We're always on the lookout for venues that would provide for both these increasing electors and also specifically for access. This is something that the government and we are also very, very keen on. We are very keen on actually make sure our polling stations are accessible. I will take up your point, Councillor, and actually have a see if we can actually find an alternative for the Methodist Church.
Thank you very much, Adrian, and thank you, Councillor Cole. Just one point on that I would like to add, then that is that it's a very difficult job. I think Adrian's presented a very good report. What I was going to add on this is that I think if we've got an issue that's not changing, as in this was supposed before, then I think we could really help Adrian by going to them as the local member and giving local advice and information. So I appreciate the situation. If it's not, you know, if it's a one on the changes, then that's the one to hear tonight. Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Colbert. Councillor Hunt. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Not everybody reads the minutiae in this particular report. And to a great extent I have. And I would just like to say a congratulations and a thank you to Adrian for covering all these small issues which make the thing so successful when it happens. And it's all in there, the little bits about what's going to change, what percentage you do here, who's going to be able to vote. He's done a lot of detailed work, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Dupre.
Thank you, Chair. I'll comment very briefly to make 3 points. Firstly, Section 18(2)(c) of the Representation of the People Act 1983 requires that the polling place for any polling district shall be small enough to indicate to electors in different parts of the polling district how they will be able to reach the polling station. Secondly, it's important that the location of polling stations is as consistent as possible, as constant change can reduce voter turnout. And thirdly, it would surely be possible to change a polling station as needed by reference to a meeting of this council, by delegation to a committee of this council, or even by delegation to officers in consultation with the chair of the council. I therefore ask that the Chief Executive be required to produce a briefing note explaining, 1, how he intends to ensure that all voters in Ely North are clear how to reach their polling station. 2, what he is doing to seek a consistent polling station in Ely North. And 3, on what grounds he has ruled out the more obvious flexibilities in favour of this solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre. I'll bring in the Chief Executive, John Hill.
Can I also thank Councillor Dupre for sharing these questions with me prior to the meeting? And I'm very pleased to be able to provide a briefing note, which I'll supply to all members, because clearly it's of importance to the whole district.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, just really briefly, I wanted to add my thanks to the electoral services team. I have many worries on polling days, but the running of a smooth election is not one of them. They do a superb job and they serve us incredibly well. So thank you.
Thank you then. Then as the seconder, you reserved your right.
Nothing to add, Chair.
Well, as the proposer of this, also, I'm going to follow my rule that I set, and I really encourage other people to do it later in the debate. There's nothing further to say on this. I'm not seeing any dissensions on this. So in that case, I will take that as another passed motion. Thank you very much, Adrian. Thank you for a good report. It was a great presentation. Really, really good presentation. Can I move to making number 11, which is the making adoption of the Reach Neighbourhood Plan? We have it here. The proposer of the Reach Neighbourhood Plan is myself as the chairman of the council, and it's to be seconded by Councillor Kane. So I'm coming to Sally to present.
Thank you, Chair. You have before you a copy of the Reach Neighbourhood Plan. At the recent referendum, 66% of votes cast were in favour of the neighbourhood plan. The final step in the process is for this council to formally make the Reach Neighbourhood Plan part of the development plan for East Cambridgeshire with immediate effect. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Sally. Any speakers on the matter? Council, well, you've got to get your right. Can I come back to you as the seconder, just in case, because the hands are going to flood up any minute. I can feel it. Perhaps not. Then we'll come back. Go on then, Councillor Bailey.
Just briefly, Chairman, I think, you know, people work incredibly hard to put these neighbourhood plans together, and they do it because they care about their community. And, you know, it's not easy. Reach is a small community. And I know there must have been many hours of blood, sweat and toil and discussion to get to where you've got. So we'd like to offer our congratulations from the council to Reach for having got to this point and so successfully getting it through through the poll.
Thanks, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Kane.
Thank you, Chair. Before I forget, Richard Kay will never forgive me if I forget. A practical point, those of you who don't want to hold on to your neighbourhood plan for future, please leave it on the table so it's available for reference. I would like to thank all the many people in Reach who work very hard on this plan and the professional consultants who help them. And I'd like to thank Richard Kay for his advice during the process as well, which was very helpful. Reach has many historical and environmental assets. Not least, we have the Wicken Fen Nature Reserve, and we have the Devil's Dyke, which is a scheduled ancient monument and a triple SI. We have our village green, on which we hold our annual 800-year-old fair. And I've been shocked to discover some people have never been.
What?
So the first bank holiday in May, Reach Fair, it's an event that has to be seen. This plan seeks to protect these assets and to develop the village as a thriving community. As we've heard, the turnout at the referendum was 58%. I'm very proud of that because actually it's the highest we've achieved so far for a neighbourhood plan referendum in the district, and 66% in support. It's a good plan. As we've heard, it's not about keeping Reach in Aspic, it's about developing it as a thriving community. It has challenges in here for the parish council to deliver. It's also going to be very helpful for us when we're assessing development planning applications within Reach. So I urge members to adopt it as part of our planning process.
Thank you. I'll go back to the proposer of the motion, and that's me. I am going to say a few words on this. I think neighbourhood plans have proven themselves already to be absolutely critical to get the local voice in the democracy world and listened to. I would like to particularly thank Nicholas Acklam for joining us tonight. And I'm sure he and many colleagues have put in many hours. And I thank you very much for coming and presenting this tonight. Reach is a very special village. I'm going to echo one thing, and that is I'm of an age this summer where I can take my grandchildren to Reach Fair, and I very, very much look forward to doing so because it's a very, very special place. Councillor Kane mentioned Aspic. I can assure you, if you can bowl for a pig, there still might be a use for that. So thank you very much. I'm going to move to the vote. There's no further standings. I'm seeing nothing against this other than pure support. So I'm delighted to say that the Reach neighbourhood plan has been adopted. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go to item 12, the pay policy statement. Nicole.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so the council's pay policy statement has been updated for the new financial year. The statement is a requirement of the Localism Act, and 3.2 details the pay for the 6 posts that are designated as chief officers. The lowest point on the council's pay scale currently equates to £11.59 per hour, and that will increase with the April pay award once agreed. The council will continue to meet or exceed the national living wage, which is currently £10.42 per hour and is set to increase to £11.44 from the 1st of April. The ratio between the highest grade and the lowest grade has reduced to 6 to 1 at the scale minimum and 6.3 to 1 at the scale maximum. And members are asked to approve and adopt the pay policy statement, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Any questions on this? I apologise, I've done it again. I understand the proposer of this is Alan. Okay, I'm happy to propose it. And seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. Well, we'll now open the debate. There's a premature opening earlier. If there are no speakers on it, I'm going to go straight to Ian as the seconder.
No further comment.
Okay, and then on to Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and get in your good books, but I'm not saying too much.
Do.
Just want to thank Nicole for the work that's been done on behalf of this. And as Nicole said, this is a statutory requirement of the Localism Act. So hopefully with that, I will finish. Thank you.
Thank you very much then. Well, I'm seeing nobody against, no dissension against this. So Nicole, thank you very much for a very well written report again. And that motion is also passed. Number 13 is the schedule of items recommended from committees and other members. I'm going to walk through these one by one and start with the risk management policy and framework update. Do we have a proposer, please?
Thank you, Chair. Happy to propose that the updated risk management policy and framework documents attached to Appendix 1 and 2 be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. And the seconder?
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Pettit. Open for debate. Any questions on this matter? I'm seeing none. Anything further to add, Chair or seconder?
No.
No. Okay. Well, if I'm not seeing I'm not seeing anybody else. I don't need to take a vote. So if everybody's happy, that's a unanimous decision. Thank you. The next one is the Treasury Operations Mid-Year Report. Do we have a proposer?
Yes, Chair.
And the seconder?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, would the proposer like to speak to the motion? Speak to the action, sorry?
Yes, just really, just to say, happy to propose it, and thanks, Ian. Thank you to Ian, the Section 151 officer, for all of the work done on this. If you look at the recommendation, it actually says Appendix 1, but it's on your papers, it's actually labelled as Appendix B. So, but happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you very much. Open the debate on this. Any questions on this? Not seeing any further thing to add, seconder and proposer?
Nothing to repeat, Chair.
Thank you very much. The same with you, proposer, Mr. Councillor Sharp.
Nothing else to add, no.
Thank you very much. Then once again, as the last one, I've seen this as a unanimous acceptance of the recommendations from that committee. Number 3 on this list, 13.3, is the annual Treasury Management Strategy, Minimum Revenue Position, MRP, and the Policy Statement and Annual Investment Strategy, AIS. Do we have a proposer for this, please?
Yes, Chair, happy to propose.
It's Alan again. Thank you, Alan. And the seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much. Would you like to speak to it?
Nothing to add, Chair.
And again, just to thank Ian for the work done, but happy to propose it and to say it's Appendix C, which is mentioned on the report, but happy to propose.
Okay. Anybody want to raise a matter on this point? Councillor Vellacott.
Just very briefly, Chair, to highlight that I'm really pleased that this council once again intends to borrow nothing externally. We have sufficient resources for internal borrowing to finance capital requirements, which is really important for our ability to innovate and also underpin the budget that we'll spend hours considering later. And the investment strategy looks to remain prudent. We continue to benefit from an inflated interest rate as well for the time being. Thank Ian very much indeed for representing good value and prudence, and I'm more than happy to vote to accept it.
Over there, but I think that's I think it's getting warm in here. Thank you very much then. Again, like the previous two, I'm seeing no dissension amongst the ranks, so we will say that that is also unanimously accepted. 13.4, the Bereavement Centre full business case. I'd like to point out when we go to the, well, let's start with the proposer first.
Happy to move the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bailey. And a seconder?
Thank you, Chair. I'll second the recommendations.
Okay.
Reserve my right to speak.
Right. I'm just going to say at this point, and then I'll come to yourself first, Mark. What I want to say at this point is there is an exempt matter here, and I would like to have as much of the debate as we possibly can in public, which means that we stay here and do it. But I hate the phrase warning, but you will be striked out and we will have to act if anything has come and brought to the public. So is there anybody knowingly now knows that they want to go into exempt session? If nobody is, then we will proceed with the debate. But what I'm doing is that, according to your agenda, I have just stopped item 20 and brought that up to item 13.4. Is everybody understanding of that? So we won't be going back into the schedule later to have the full, so this is now the full debate on the bereavement centre. Everybody happy with that? And officers are comfortable with where we're at then? Okay then, so we've had a proposer, we've had a seconder. We'll come back to councillor Inskip, who raised his hand first. Oh, I apologise, yeah, we'll let you introduce the matter. Quite correct, although it is from a recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Inskip. Thank you, Chair. Just want to go back in time a little bit. So back in 2016, the council held an ambition to build a crematorium in our rapidly growing district. The reasons for doing that is that we wanted to provide a quality service closer to home at lower prices for residents. And planning restrictions on crematoria means it's not easy to find a site, and the Meeple site did become available in 2017 following its sad closure as an outdoor centre. It is a really beautiful setting, and it does have a special atmosphere, which we believe will be very supportive to bereaved families. It has space for quiet reflection, including the lake and other natural assets, which will make it welcoming for families. And I think uniquely for a crematorium to enable and support people to revisit in future should they wish to remember loved ones. It is unique. It is also a designated county wildlife site, and we have a massive opportunity to respect and enhance and improve the important and extensive biodiversity that we now know exists on the site, while still being able to open the site for low impact recreational use such as walking, bird watching and fishing. And we know from the Wildlife Trust's advice that that is the restriction that is now placed on that site. It is not possible to use that site any longer for a high impact leisure use. We've spent a very long time working up the full business case. We've used industry experts to support this process, and the business case is very positive. It shows a surplus in year 2. And to be clear, finances are absolutely not the motivation for this project. But of course, it's comforting to see the positive business case that means that this is low risk for the council. We have an opportunity to offer a great service at lower cost in a really beautiful setting. Our district is growing, and the council has worked hard to deliver community infrastructure, supporting all sorts of projects financially. We've supported new community centres, upgrades to village halls, a new district leisure centre, cycle routes, footbridges, schools and learning hubs, GP surgeries, new and improved roads, sports facilities, cemetery land, a new theatre in Soham, the Ely Museum upgrade, and over 5.7 million has been given directly to parish councils to support their projects locally. And we've also got significant funds put aside in our SIL funding pots, and we'll continue to provide support for new and improved health facilities, water and flood management infrastructure, and other community assets in the years to come. The SIL pot in East Cambs does replenish very quickly. We are growing at 2% growth rate, and the money does come in. I understand that some Liberal Democrat members don't support this proposal, but I really hope that you can find it in your heart and understand and respect that we're working hard to deliver a really high quality facility and service for our local residents that we hope will be supportive to them at a time of need and will feel special. And I hope that all members of the council, regardless of how they vote this evening, will get involved in the public engagement work to help us deliver a really special and unique community facility, something that is different to what others offer. And services that, you know, we know are the right services for our residents. I want us all to be proud of it, and I want it to become a much loved community asset. And in closing, I do just want to pay huge thanks to people who have been involved in this project from the start, because it's been a long time getting here. It's been very complicated and there's been an enormous amount of work. And it starts with our late departed friend and colleague, Joe Brooks, who really had the vision for this facility. And, you know, I'm here to continue that vision through and see it through. And also Alistair Merrick, who guided us through an enormous array of ecology and biodiversity reports and through the planning process and the planning process itself. And of course, recently, Isabel, who has brought significant rigour and robustness to this project, and Sally, who's supported around the SIL contribution information. So thank you to all officers for their very hard work over a long period of time. And I'm delighted to be finally here today supporting this project.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Inskip.
Thank you, Chair. So the crematorium business plan that's before us proposes spending £9 million of SIL funds on this development in the northeast of the district, providing a facility that actually won't be the nearest facility for a large number of East Cambridgeshire residents. And £9 million is a huge proportion of the SIL funds the district council has received from housing developments across East Cambridgeshire. SIL funds should benefit those across the district, and they should be improving the infrastructure. You know, if you look at even the council's own website, and it lists the sort of things that SIL should be spent on: transport infrastructure, roads, traffic management, cycleways, footways, schools and other education facilities, community facilities, health facilities, sports and recreation facilities, open spaces. The list goes on, but it's a familiar list because it's the sort of list that residents raise with us all the time. And yet, if I look across the country, I've yet to find another example where it's being used to provide a crematorium. And I've certainly not had any residents lobby me saying we really should think the SIL money should be spent on a new crematorium. And if we do wonder about where residents stand, we need to look no further than the council's own statement of community involvement that was prepared to support the council's planning application. The final question of that the survey that went with that gave the public the opportunity to provide any last comments on views. And that document lists the following. The overall sentiment, it says, for the crematorium, 13%, against a massive 85.4%, and 1.6% didn't have a comment. But I think the administration were already well aware of the likely public reaction, which is why the proposal was quietly removed from the council's corporate plan, and why it was worked on in secret for over 18 months. Spending £9 million of SIL funds on a crematorium project has a huge opportunity cost. It means that money isn't available for road and traffic management improvements. It isn't available for new cycleways, new schools, new community facilities, health facilities, new sports facilities and open spaces. But that's not the only flaw with this proposal before us. If you look at the business case, a lot of that is in confidential papers that I can't refer to, but there's sufficient in the public papers to raise significant concerns. Paragraph 4.5 talks about competition appraisal, and it talks about a total of around about 800 cremations a year moving to the Meeple site. Paragraph 4.6 makes clear where that business is being taken from. It says the crematorium based in March, currently 1,100 cremations per annum, it says is the facility that will be most impacted by this plan. In other words, the business case relies on taking a significant amount of business from the Dignity crematorium in March. Now, how would Dignity respond? Well, we need to look no further than their accounts, their public accounts, where it says on page 49, their strategy to respond to competition. They say that by reducing fees, they believe the short-term hit from fees reduction will result in a long-term revenue impact increase to increase sales volume. So it will be reasonable to expect them to cut fees in March to see off the competition. And just look at their costs at other facilities. So today, March, they charge £1,115 for a cremation. Huntingdon nearby charges £888. I can't say, because it's in confidential papers, what's proposed for this council's crematorium, but Dignity operates Trent Valley, where they charge just £865 because of the competition in that area. And without talking about the confidential papers, if Dignity responded in that way, that would have a serious impact on the assumptions that are made in the business case. Currently, the council's midterm financial plan relies in 2027-28 on an income of £272,000 from the crematorium. That figure could be dramatically impacted in a highly competitive environment, potentially descending into a loss that would have to be subsidised by council taxpayers. And then I have another concern. Paragraph 4.6 says the projected impact will be far less for Huntingdon Town Council crematorium, and this can be mitigated by close working between publicly owned crematoria to mitigate unnecessary competition. As I raised at the Financial and Assets Committee, I strongly suspect that that would be a contravention of the Enterprise Act 2002.
You're approaching the end of your times.
Yeah, so in summary, the evidence is clear. The crematorium is not wanted by the local public. It represents a huge opportunity cost in the use of space.
Okay, thank you,
And the
Councillor
business
Inskip.
case is seriously flawed.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you very much, Chair. I won't take 5 minutes. I think it's worth just bearing a few simple facts in mind here. Of course, Councillor Bailey is right. Of course, we're trying to give a facility to the people of East Cambs and some nearby residents. Of course, we want to do it properly. We've all been in a situation where things have been done tastelessly or not well. We will do this well, like the Hive is well. Yes, we are a go-ahead and progressive council, and we fight above our weight, and we will continue to do that as long as this administration stays. There's no facility like this in East Cambs at the moment, and the one that we're suggesting is 9 miles away from Ely. At funeral speed, it's about 12 minutes. Now, we've all known and we've all had upsets in our family lives, and we've all wanted closure. Well, the fact is that there are people waiting quite too long to close and to get there and say goodbye properly to their relatives and their friends. So I think it's very important. And we should also remember that in 1970, it was about 50-50 with the people who wanted to be buried or the people who wanted to be cremated. That's now moved to 80-20. And the population, of course, as you know, has increased considerably as well. So the demand is there. It's not a commercial operation. It's a facility which will be very useful and heartwarming to the residents of East Cambs. And I actually would also say to the people over there, just say, well, where's your plan B? Well, it's very easy to criticise anybody, but let's see what the alternative is. I don't think there is one, not really. So I'm going to support this. I think it will be a marvellous thing for this area. And yet again, it will show us thinking about what our residents need. And I'm very pleased to back it.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Huffer.
Thank you, Chair. My mother is about to turn 94 in April. And God willing, she makes it through to when the crematorium or the bereavement centre is fully functioning. So I can take her there to say goodbye, because I've been to too many funerals in Cambridge City, the ghastly thing along Bar Hill, which is just soulless and awful. I went to a funeral recently in Bury St Edmunds, which was soulless and awful. I'm going to say goodbye to a loved relative or a friend or anybody else. I want to be able to go back there a year later and remember them fondly. This isn't about cost. I would pay double whatever March is charging to make sure that my mother has the right kind of send-off. Fortunately, she has just moved from South Cambs, from Fulbourn, into Burwell. So I would happily make that journey from Burwell with my mother on her last journey to somewhere beautiful where her memory can be treasured by the rest of her family. And I think this is about providing, this isn't about money. This is about providing a facility for the living, for people who can go somewhere to remember the people that they've said goodbye to. This isn't about how much money it's going to make. It's more important than that. This is about giving something to our community that everybody can respect, admire, and remember the people that they have said goodbye to. It's the most difficult day of their lives. Let's make it the best day possible under the circumstances, and I will be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Huffer. Councillor Dupre.
Thank you, Chair. As is obvious to almost all East Cambridgeshire residents, this crematorium is the wrong proposal in the wrong place for the wrong reasons. It was deliberately removed from the Conservatives' corporate plan so that it could be developed in secret, with public money spent on it behind closed doors. The vast majority of East Cambridgeshire residents don't want it. It's located at the furthest edge of the district. In fact, there is literally nowhere in East Cambridgeshire that is closer to its nearest competitor at March. And it has been developed not with the primary intent of providing a service to residents, but to laundromat £9 million of developer contributions intended to enhance local communities into ready cash to subsidise council tax. The business case for this crematorium relies on one strategy, taking on the Dignity crematorium in March in a vicious price war, which it is not clear the council will win. If the Conservatives' crematorium succeeds, it will be by running its neighbour into the ground, something the proprietors of the March crematorium are unlikely to take lightly. And because there isn't a large enough market, the Conservatives have proposed to try to soften the blow for the third crematorium in the mix at Huntingdon by proposing close working to mitigate unnecessary competition. As I pointed out when this proposal was presented to the Council's Finance and Assets Committee, that is a cartel, collusion between operators in the same business sector, punishable by up to 5 years in jail for its directors. And if the Conservatives' crematorium doesn't succeed in putting Dignity out of business in March, and if their proposal for collusion with Huntingdon doesn't work out, this will be a massive white elephant draining taxpayers' money and forcing tax rises, not for services to the public, but to throw into an expensive money pit. In short, no.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre. We have Councillor Trapp.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hunt asked about Plan B. Unfortunately, there's no Plan B because we're voting on this, but another location would have been much better. None of my residents, none of the wards where I am will be able to make use of this. It's very much north of the district. And actually, if we really wanted a nice business case, to have it somewhere near a new market might have actually produced far more profit than having it somewhere which is adjacent to another crematorium. But we can't do anything about this. It's Plan B. Plan B is not on the cards at all. It could have been thought through at an earlier stage.
Not seeing any. Oh, yes.
Thank you, Chair. I can't support this recommendation for a crematorium and burial site at Meeple. As we've heard, the site offers no greater convenience to my residents than existing crematoria and less convenience than their parish council run cemeteries. And those cemeteries are dignified, beautiful places in which for our relatives to have their final resting place and for us to go back and visit them regularly. So I think using 9 million of SIL money to build it, instead of using that money for much needed community facilities, is just wrong. We used to provide an outdoor centre at Meeple, much used by young people. We're told that that can no longer be used for that purpose, but we could still use the 9 million to replace the activities lost at Meeple across the district, activities for our young people to do, which are frankly sadly lacking across this district. Instead, we're using it to compete with existing crematoria, which already provide services to our residents. I won't repeat what people have said, but it is clear that we are not going to win a price war with Dignity, and there is the risk that we are entering into a cartel, which would be illegal. I think it's an ill thought through proposal. I think it doesn't serve the district well, and I will therefore vote against it. And I would like to ask for a recorded vote.
Noted on the vote. Thank you for your comments. Not seeing any other hands, I'm going to go to the seconder of the motion, Councillor Vellacott.
Thank you, Chairman. The passing of a loved one is a very deep challenge to one's person. It's a moment where you're searching for support and a moment where you're particularly vulnerable. And I think our residents, young and old, will all experience that at one time or another. Tonight, we have a chance to help them through that. And now I got on my bike the other day and I trekked through the mud to Meeple on Saturday. The site is full of nature. It is truly stunning, but is also covered in litter. And it deserves, in my view, to be shown the respect it once held that opposition members have spoken about, and that is what this project will provide. There are practical arguments for this proposal. You know, an income stream is welcome to help us keep council tax low, but that is just a bonus. It protects rich biodiversity, including otters. Otters, I love otters. And it saves us the cost of securing the current site. And as members will see from all of our papers, we are in a solid financial position to deliver it via SIL and make it viable in the market with no detriment to other projects. Now, I have to agree with colleagues that it was truly sad, even though it's slightly before my time, that Meeple Outdoor Centre wasn't viable when several attempts were made to restore it cross-party. But today, we have an option to take valuable action to protect the much-loved and rightly respected history of that site, instead of doing what we are now and leaving it to rot. I have scrutinised the economic arguments, and they are sound, so I don't want to focus on this element of the proposal tonight, although others will do so eloquently. I want to remind colleagues why we are doing this, and also how some members of our opposition saw fit to contribute to our discussions. They dismissed this project for bereaved residents and valued wildlife as unwanted. And Councillor Dupre, in an act of what I can only civilly describe as the gravest inhumanity, called it a money launderette, as if that is how insensitive we must be, or even remotely why we did it, and a cartel based as a soundbite on minimal evidence arising from our competitive price point and location. And I do understand that most of the district is closer to other crematoria, but members, on a day like that, the last thing you do is get your Google Maps out and go, oh, that one's closest. And you look for the best for your loved ones. That's certainly what I would do. And this is by far going to be the best. And the opposition say funds should be put into community projects. Well, what is a community project if not this? Right, we've put SIL into sports facilities in my patch, transport infrastructure, cafes, community hubs. Councillor Bailey's gone through the lot. This is just one example of our innovative approach to their service. So the opposition have berated our officers at Finance and Assets and here, no evidence, no viable alternatives for the Meeple site, other than Councillor Trapp's suggestion of a big sculpture. They are so lost in their own portrayal of confusion that they are trying to sell the residents of this district a story of an evil Tory money-making plot when we're simply building a bereavement centre, which we can afford in a sensible and beautiful place. That amounts to total contempt for people that we're serving, and they have been disgraceful in the debates. And some of them can't even pay attention to some speaking, so how they can face Graving East Camp's families, I've no idea. Now, I have no doubt members opposite will vote against this proposal. That's their group line, fair enough. But I implore them, just consider privately whether that truly reflects your opinion. You can walk out of here today knowing that you chose to make a difference. You chose for it to be this way. Our residents will remember and return to that kindness for the rest of their lives. And that's what we're here to do, which is why I don't understand the harshness and the vitriol that's come from the opposition front bench. We are here at this council to make the tough parts of life easier for our residents of all ages. So let's just for one brief moment before the vote, set aside the parties in the council. I am really proud of what we're going to be able to do as people for our neighbours, and more importantly, what we can give them, because this is not a building by a lake. I know the paper's go into great detail about it, but it's not a building by a lake. It's comfort and it's solace and it's protection when God only knows these people need it most. And this council has to show that these people, these vulnerable people who we were all elected here to serve, are never, ever alone. I agree with Councillor Kane. Let's record this vote.
Thank you, Councillor Vellacott. The timer didn't run there. I was watching and asking for time on that, so I do apologise, but I think Councillor Vellacott was in by a couple of seconds. I'm going to go to the proposer now with no further ado.
Thank you, Chairman. I do just want to address some of the things that have been said. Councillor Inskip listed lots of types of projects that SIL money should be spent on. And actually, I don't think he mentioned one single project on that list that we haven't already funded. And of course, there are significant funds left in the SIL reserves and more coming in. And we are pretty much the fastest growing district in the country at 2%. So there will be more coming. This is a totally appropriate use of SIL money. This is literally a piece of community infrastructure, and SIL stands for Community Infrastructure Levy. This is a community facility for local people. It is literally what it says on the tin. Councillor Inskip talked a lot about local residents dismissing this project, and Councillor Dupre said that the vast majority of East Cambs residents don't want it. I don't know what on earth she bases that on. The planning consultation, only 3 people responded. 1 was neutral, 1 was positive, 1 was negative. And in the public engagement exercise, there were only 188 responses. And there's no doubt that the old Meeple Outdoor Centre was a much loved local facility. And that was expressed in the public engagement process. And of those 188 responses, 85% of those said that they were responding and they had an important historical family allegiance to the old outdoor centre. So it's not surprising that the opinions they were expressing was that sentiment. And amongst those people, the council, of course, worked hard to pursue that outcome. And in fact, Councillor Dupre knows well that we tried twice cross-party to secure an operator for the site as an outdoor centre, but the chosen provider dropped out following concerns about financial viability. And the County Council knows this well because it has been closing outdoor leisure facilities across the county. What we know, of course, is that the biodiversity and ecology present on the site means that the high impact leisure use just simply isn't possible. And in fact, when questioned about the discovery of rich biodiversity on the site and the proposed crematorium project, which literally aims to protect and further and enhance that ecology, that is at the heart of the project, 73% of respondents considered that to be very important and 16% considered it to be important. So on that aspect, it was very well supported. 89% of respondents supported that overall. So out of those 188 people, and there are nearly 90,000 residents in East Cambs. So where Councillor Dupre gets to, the vast majority of East Cambs residents don't want it. I just have no idea. I've been contacted by lots of people who have quietly told me they think it's a wonderful idea. I think it is enormously disrespectful to the work that's gone into this and to the use of that site to try and describe it as a cartel and a laundromat for raising cash. There is nothing wrong with the council using its money financially well and making wise investments to support the medium-term financial plan of this authority. That is a happy outcome of this. Councillor Dupre knows about that. She's inherited the conservative way at the county council of spending capital funds on solar farms in order to bring in revenue to the council. So she knows this model perfectly well. Councillor Dupre is concerned about forcing of tax rises. Well, this council has the best record in the country of any district, county or unitary authority of not increasing its council tax. And I hope later tonight we will be freezing it for the 11th year, and no one else has that record. We have a history of running good projects well. And Councillor Kane cites concerns about the fact that lots of people still using cemeteries. And of course, what we do know is I think it's over 70% of people do now choose to be cremated. So, you know, the vast majority of people do choose the alternative. So I am really proud to be here supporting this. And I hope members opposite will really think about how they're going to vote.
Thank you very much. Before we go to what will be a recorded vote, I'd like to thank members. That was a very dignified debate. And you did not go anywhere near the exempt matters. So I just from the chair, I'd like to thank you because that wasn't easy to do. So thank you for that. So Tracy, recorded vote.
Thank you, Chairman. When I call your name, can you say whether you're for, against or abstaining on the recommendations in the report? Councillor Akinwale.
Against.
Councillor Christine Ambrose-Smith.
For.
Councillor Bailey.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Bovingdon.
For.
Councillor Kane.
Against.
Councillor Colbert.
Against.
Councillor Dupre.
Against.
Councillor Edwards.
For.
Councillor Goldsack.
For.
Councillor Goodell.
For.
Councillor Holtzman.
Against.
Councillor Huffer.
For.
Councillor Hunt.
For.
Councillor Inskip.
Against.
Councillor Lay.
For.
Councillor Miller.
For.
Councillor Pettit.
For.
Councillor Sharp.
For.
Councillor Trapp,
Against.
Councillor Velicott,
For.
Councillor Wade,
Against.
Councillor beg your pardon, Councillor Wilson.
Against.
The recommendations are carried by 14 votes in favour to 9 against.
Thank you very much, Tracy. We're going to move on to the next one, but the next item on the agenda. Before I introduce it, I would just like to point out that I intend to stop for a break at 8 p.m. Okay, we will have at least a 10-minute comfort break at 8 p.m. Whatever the state of the debate is at that point. So I'm giving you fair warning, and that's what that's I think the fair thing to do, if only for myself. Thank you. So I'd like to introduce item 14, the East Cambridgeshire Street Scene Management Fee. It's going to be introduced by Ian. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. As detailed in the report, amongst other reasons, as a consequence of higher inflation, especially on staffing costs, and the need to bring in specialist support in some areas during the year, ECSS has not been able to contain expenditure from its management fee during 23-24. The ECS board has requested an additional management fee of up to £200,000 on an open book arrangement to meet these additional costs. Members are asked to approve this additional management fee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. Do we have a proposer of the motion?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you very much. And do we have a seconder?
Yeah, happy to second, reserve my right.
Thank you very much. Back to you then, Councillor Huffer, to put the motion. There is an amendment.
You can speak.
You speak first. Thank you. Yeah, introduce it.
Thank you, Chair. I want us all to step back for a moment and remember where we were not too long ago and the challenges we had to address to stabilise this vital service. This time last year, we sat in the chamber and approved an overspend which addressed most of the challenges, and we approved this year's budget, which reflected the needs of the service as we knew them then. Since then, we have seen vast improvements in performance, and we're well on our way to ensuring we deliver a service that our residents deserve. Today, we're being asked to increase this year's management fee by up to £200,000. The major element causing the overspend is staffing costs. Just like the council, ECSS budgeted for a 4% cost of living increase. The NJC award was higher than budgeted, but not settled until November last year. And for most staff at ECSS, the pay award resulted in an 8% increase. There was also an overspend relating to agency staff and consultancy costs. Both were necessary to improve the performance and ensure compliance, as we needed to bring in temporary support while we recruited to key posts in the service. Later this evening, we will consider our budget for the coming year, which includes the management fee for ECSS. The management fee captures the recurring elements of this year's overspend. We've also agreed changes to reporting requirements for ECSS, which gives us greater transparency and oversight, and enables us to have confidence that the budget is being effectively managed, and they are committed to ongoing efficiency and improvement to deliver a high quality service. I urge you all to support this request, and I look forward to seeing the continued service improvement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Huffer. Right, we have an amendment on this. Someone going to speak to the amendment?
Yeah, I'm proposing the amendment.
Okay, do we have a seconder for the amendment?
Yeah, I second and reserve my right.
Thank you, Councillor Inskip. Councillor Kane, back to you for the amendment then.
ECSS delivers a vital service to our residents, collecting our bins, sweeping our roads and removing fly tipping. We all see the crews working across the district, and I know their work is valued by our residents. But as our company, ECSS is an example of the failure of governance from ECDC, failure of financial management by the company, and failure of the audit committee to identify these problems. The failure of governance has been identified by the Chief Executive in his members' briefing note of September 23 and by the internal audit report of January 2024. The Chief Executive's briefing identified governance failures, and the internal audit report found gaps in the internal control framework in the governance of ECSS by ECDC. The failure of financial management is clear from the request last February just near the end of the financial year for an increased fee of up to 500,000. And that was then put into the budget for 2023-24. And then we have a request at this meeting for an increased fee of up to 200,000 for 2023-24, again in February, right near the end of the financial year. And they're asking for an increase of about £1 million for 2024-25. Councillor Inskip and I repeatedly raised concerns at Audit Committee about the unrealistically low risk allocated to ECSS, but the committee ignored our concerns and accepted unsubstantiated assurances that the risk was low. Requests for key people to attend Audit Committee to answer questions about ECSS were always refused. Last year, the Lib Dems asked Council to require various audits, reviews and director assurances before we confirmed the fee increase, but this was rejected by the Conservatives, with the Leader of Council saying she disagreed with the assertions of poor governance. We now have evidence of poor governance. A year has passed. ECSS is still not delivering to the agreed service levels, and despite being given additional fees for 2023-24, they're asking for another £200,000 in fees this year. As a responsible custodian of public money, we must get the governance, risk management and financial management right. The joint efforts of ECSS and ECDC over the last year have demonstrably not addressed all the problems. This amendment allows ECSS to carry forward the 23-24 overspend, requires forward-looking monthly financial reporting to our Section 151 officer, and crucially asks the ECSS external auditors to carry out a review and make recommendations to ensure service delivery and sound financial management. Once we have the results of those, we'll be in a position to decide whether to increase the 2024-25 fee to cover the overspend from 2023-24. I commend this amendment to Council as a responsible way forward to the problems with ECSS and ask for a recorded vote.
Recorded vote noted. I just want to remind all members now, we are now opening up the debate on the amendment. Okay, so would anybody like to speak to or against the amendment, please? Okay, we'll start with Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Chairman. I absolutely can't support this amendment. Going back when there were problems with the waste service after the round reconfiguration and very considerable staff health issues, some really serious that all hit as a bit of a horrible perfect storm. You know, the Lib Dems, rightly so, complained like mad and jumped up and down when things were going wrong. And of course, we were absolutely apologetic to our residents at that time. This side of the chamber, the administration, just took a decision to invest in the service. And the Lib Dems now complain that we're investing in the service to try and improve the performance, which it has done. What exactly, Chairman, do the Liberal Democrats want us not to do out of the things that East Cam Street Scene undertakes? Do they want to cut staff pay? Do they want to cut the number of vehicles and the rounds that we're running? Do they want to stop putting fuel in those vehicles? Do they want to stop collecting garden waste? Because these are the choices. This isn't some frivolous overspend that's, you know, profligate to East Cam Street Scene with people spending the money going on holiday. This is investment into the service to provide the level of service that we want to for East Cam's residents. And these are the choices that are open to the Lib Dems if they don't support the increases in the management fee that the District Council gives East Cam Street Scene. All waste collection councils have experienced increasing costs. We are no different in that. Inflation has been running, you know, at extremely high levels. Are their overspends a failure of financial management, or are they just that, overspends that go unnoticed in lines in budgets because they're not so transparent and open as we are, because we run ours in an external company? And in fact, I would point out to Councillor Kane that we have been given, East Cam Street Scene has been given a clean bill of health by external audit, which was reported to the last committee, I think. Last year, the Liberal Democrats wanted to loan East Cam Street Scene £500,000 instead of giving it the money it needed. That would have literally plunged the company into liquidation overnight, and the company would have been incapable of paying its staff salaries, and the vehicles would not have gone out of the depot to collect people's waste if that proposal had gone through. Because, of course, East Cam Street Scene has no way of raising additional money to pay back a loan other than coming to this council to ask for money in the management fee. That is the failure that the Lib Dems deliberately seem to regularly repeat and seem to fail to understand the relationship that exists here. The management accounts go to board of East Cam Street Scene and all members. So I think, you know, this 18-month proposal is absolutely unnecessary. And we need to deal with this issue and the financial needs of East Cam Street Scene right now. We need to give them certainty so that they can deliver the service that we want. We do not want to be delaying these decisions and passing them forward and having to deal with them in future financial years. Completely irresponsible. I'm really happy to support the increases that our colleagues in East Cam Street Scene need to get them back up to doing the job that we want them to do, and that I know they will and are well on the way to achieving. And I'm really looking forward to you know, exciting changes in the future. We're now signed up finally to the separate food waste, weekly food waste collection service that will be required to implement by 2026. And that does allow us to consider other changes that we want to make to the service to make it an even better service for our residents and improve our recycling rate. We're already the best in the county. I think we're about 25th in the country, but we want to be the best, and we absolutely can be, because East Cam's residents are fantastic at recycling.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Huff, I'm not going to bring you in now because you have the right of reply as you proposed the original motion. So we're going to go to the list and take them in the order that we saw them. So next we have Councillor Sharp, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bailey said a lot of what I was going to say, so I'll try and avoid duplication in the sense of...
Please do.
Just a couple of points then. I mean, or three or four. We've got the business cases coming to Op Services in March, so we can prepare to push it into the grass till July would mean that they'll be going into 24-25 without an agreed business plan, as I understand it. I cannot accept Councillor Kane's comments around lack of sound financial management. I think that's totally wrong. And I think part of this comes from the dislike from the Liberal Democrats of the trading companies. They don't like the idea of Street Scene or ECTC. Yet we've just heard on the previous debate, because we're bringing it in-house, we're endangering council tax. So that, you know, they change the dialogue to suit whatever argument they've got. I just cannot support this amendment. And as said, the management accounts come regularly, and I won't repeat anything else I was going to say because it's been already said. Thank you.
That's very much appreciated, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Chair. I think there's been a slight misrepresentation about what we're talking about here. It's not the existence of a request for funds, it's the late notice period that comes for those funds, which suggests a concern around the financial management. And it isn't a personal opinion or hatred of how a company is being run. There are some well-documented and agreed signs and evidence that you require within an audit environment that allows you to say, yes, we can see that good financial management is being demonstrated. And the concern is that that isn't the case in this situation. So it's not the amounts. We're not saying don't spend the money. We're saying, why is this only being noticed so late in the financial year? Thank you.
Okay, then with no further hands, we're going to come to the seconder of the amendment, Councillor Inskip.
Thank you, Chair. So I won't repeat a lot of the arguments. Yeah, clearly, inflation has rocketed. It's still well above the Bank of England's target. At a local level, we're victims of the economic mismanagement happening at national level, and you know that's maybe a debate for another time. But that's clearly impacted both the council and it's impacted local residents. And we should be calling that out because we represent those local residents. But the financial performance of ECSS in recent years hasn't been impressive. As Councillor Kane has said, in past years, we've regularly raised concerns at the audit committee that were ignored until finally, after actually I'd left the audit committee, we had a report from the chief executive that pretty much confirmed everything that we'd been saying. A year ago, as Councillor Kane has said, we were informed that ECSS had run up an overspend to the tune of nearly £500,000. We asked questions about why that was so late, and we raised serious concerns that they were just rejected out of hand. We are concerned about the sound financial management. Let me just give a few simple examples. A couple of trivial things, but you'd have thought that this, I think, speaks volumes. One of the reasons for the current overspend, we're told, is that when the budget was approved in February, we forgot to include the King's coronation bank holiday, which was announced in November the previous year. Similarly, there was a negotiation with staff to agree new salaries and new overtime rates in November, when the budget was signed off. Again, they were missed, and they were forgotten to be put in. So those are just, if you can't even get the basics right, we have to be concerned, and we shouldn't. We should give the scrutiny that's needed, and I think it's unreasonable to just dismiss that. More serious concerns: the budget averaged for this current year was put together on the basis of an average of 2.5 agency staff. However, in the first 6 months of the year, we've actually averaged 8.2 agency staff, leading to a significant overspend. In November, at Operational Services Committee, we were told we were heading towards an overspend. We raised concerns and we asked for an urgent report to get that back on track. We were told, no, we need to wait until the January meeting for that report. Our concern was that if we left it that late, it's going to be too late in the year to do anything about it. What happened was Operational Services had to be delayed to the end of January for that report to come in. And lo and behold, what did that report tell us? It was too late to try to recover the overspend. So time and again, we've had these problems. And one other concern I'd like to raise. So Councillor Bailey seems to be working on the presumption that the only option open to us when we're looking at future arrangements is that we continue with ECSS. I think we owe it to our residents to look at all options and not assume that the arrangements we have in place today are giving best value for money and the best service for our residents. That's what we should be valuing most, and that's what we're trying to achieve with this amendment today.
Thank you, Councillor Inskip. Now, as the proposer of the original motion, Councillor Huffer, you have the right to reply.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I have to say I am completely astonished that Councillors Kane and Inskip now have such grave concerns when Operational Services just 3 weeks ago, when all relevant officers from Street Scene were present to answer questions, no such concerns were raised by Councillor Inskip. And I noted that one member was absent from the opposition, and neither of the substitutes, Councillors Kane or Dupre, thought their concerns were sufficiently grave to attend the meeting to ask the questions. So you have to kind of wonder, how grave are your concerns really, or is this just once again just poking at East Cam Street Scene? So you want us to go against our 151 officer's wishes, which is he would like to see this cleared up now, and get this done that this is the preference of the 151 officer. You'd like to burden our 151 officer by having monthly meetings when he's in regular contact with the finance officer of Street Scene. The external auditor has already given Street Scene a clean bill of health, which also came forward in the Operational Services report, if you read it, as you should have done as a substitute. To answer Councillor Wade's question, why couldn't it be sorted out before this? Because the NJC award did not happen until November. It was delayed. to answer Councillor Inskip's query about the January operational services meeting had to be delayed because we had to have the street scene board meeting, so those minutes could be built before operational services as had been requested by Councillor Kane. That's why it has been delayed, and this is why it had to come forward in January. And bear in mind the fact this is up to £200,000. The expectation is that it will be lower than £200,000. And yes, we had a sticky time with the service, but it is now so much more improved with a better management structure, with a better team in that are really running this service the way our residents deserve to be treated and have their waste and everything else dealt with properly. I am so weary of the opposition constantly carping on about the service. Let's just get behind them. Let's support them. You can do your thing in audit, Councillor Kane, and you can pick it to pieces, but don't bring it to this committee and tell them that there are governance failings. The external auditor would disagree with you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Huffer. So we've had a request for a recorded vote on the amendment that we've just debated. So on the amendment, I will pass over to Tracy to lead us through a recorded vote.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. You are voting on the amendment. So when I call your name, can you say whether you're voting for, against or abstaining? Councillor Akinwale.
For.
Councillor Ambrose Smith.
Against.
Councillor Bailey.
Against.
Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Bovingdon.
Against.
Councillor Kane.
For.
Councillor Colbert.
For.
Councillor Dupre. For. Councillor Edwards. Councillor Goldsack.
Against.
Councillor Goodall.
Against.
Councillor Holtzman.
For.
Councillor Huffer.
Against.
Councillor Hunt.
Against.
Councillor Inskip.
For.
Councillor Lay.
Against.
Councillor Miller.
Against.
Councillor Pettit.
Against.
Councillor Sharp.
Against.
Councillor Trapp.
For.
Councillor Vellacott.
Against.
Councillor Wade.
For.
Councillor Wilson.
For.
The motion, the amendment, sorry, is lost by 9 votes to 14.
Thank you very much. So we now return to the substantive motion, which was put forward to us for Councillor Huffer, and we now open the debate on the, right, so we've got Councillor Vellacott, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think that amendment must have been inspired by my cat because it assumed a position of great inconvenience. ECSS, like Councillor Kane rightly says, deliver a service for my residents who are the most important factor in any equation. So I don't want to give the impression that we're nonchalantly nodding and overspend through. But at the same time, the situation is quite simple. When setting the management fee, it would be irresponsible of us to sanction a greater cost to the public purse than we think is necessary to deliver our requirements. But because ECSS doesn't run for profit at minimum cost to taxpayers, it literally has no option to say, don't worry, we'll cover this unexpected cost. It could, as the amendment suggested, cover it next year in its cash flow. But again, it will only have one contract next year as well. So where else the opposition expects it to recuperate a loss from, I certainly don't know. And it's not from council tax rises. If we bail on them, they will go insolvent. So officers expect the overspend to total £165,000. And as Councillor Bailey said, subtract the unavoidable agency staff cost, which has now been significantly reduced down to 4.3, then the fuel costs, pay award, recycling credit shortfall, there's a trend. ECSS are left with very little scope for avoidable overspends, and what we can control has been properly justified by officers, and including implementing a more robust management structure. We know this because every meeting, the Operational Services Committee receives a blue paper, and it has the ECSS management accounts in it, and they show detailed reasons, and they're open for members to ask questions about or raise concerns about, although in the exempt session, no one ever seems to. And yet the opposition demand that board observers attend audit committee and undergo some kind of select committee questioning, which isn't its job. And they had that chance today, but members from the opposition have not submitted any questions to our board observers at council. And if we'd budgeted for this cost, Chairman, but it hadn't actually been incurred, then I have every suspicion that the opposition would quite rightly stand here and ask why we'd paid ECSS, a not-for-profit company, money it hadn't used. And we have a budget now, which we'll debate later, which accounts for 4.5 agency staff, HVO, which is a brilliant step forward, and an increased pay rise. And that shows that the council and ECSS are being prudent. And after all, their aims are exactly the same as ours. You know, we are not at odds with one another. It's providing a service for residents. So if the waste service was in-house, we would simply just have to pay it like we do with the planning overspend at the moment. We would have no item on this agenda. And ECSS may be a limited company, but in this respect, it's absolutely no different. And because of the new budget and positive trends at the company going forward, I've been thoroughly reassured by officers that this will be the last time this item appears before council for the foreseeable future. The only reason it's here now is because it was unforeseeable. And I would urge members to just avoid the trap of blindly slating ECSS and look with us for solutions for our residents. That's the model we're working with at the moment, so we need to make it work. And we can see from the performance reports we get at committee that the service is not just good, but improving. And the most appropriate way to cover the unavoidable costs now is support the waste service going forward and get this out of the way.
Thank you, Councillor Vellacott. Councillor Hunt.
You know, Chair, thank you. Some of my colleagues are very articulate and detailed and absolutely pin every little thing down correctly. I'm not going to do that. I just think what the people want and we want is a great service. We just want to give people something they can be proud of and that makes their lives simple. The bins get taken away every week. It costs about £1 a shot. We visit 30,000 homes every week and we get 99% of it right, although occasionally we get a bin on the wrong side of a drive. But that's not bad out of 30,000. We want to make people happy and we don't want to have any external borrowings, and we're not going to. So I think that's a pretty good place to be. Of course, the opposition would like to bring in bureaucracy. And when you're on the doorstep, there's one thing people hate, and it is bureaucracy. Monthly management reports, fill in another form, get another spreadsheet. They want their bins taken away every week. They don't want you all sitting here just working on paperwork. And really, we don't want any more red tape. We just want to deliver for the people of East Cambs. What I'm really surprised is that the people on the other side of the chamber haven't suggested bringing in a 4-day week, because we all know that makes a lot more work get done. But there we go. It's not this council. Anyway, thank you, Chair. I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. We covered the 4-day week in the previous meeting, I believe. Thank you. Councillor Kane.
Thank you. I would like a recorded vote on this as well. I know I can't reopen the debate on the amendment, but it is quite worrying to hear people from the other side describe management accounts as red tape and bureaucracy. This is a company that overspent by nearly £500,000 last year and didn't tell us until February, and has overspent by nearly 200,000 this year and hasn't told us the final figure until February. Management accounts would have helped this company to address those issues sooner. We've heard from Councillor Huffer in answer to a question of mine at a previous council meeting that until fairly recently, the board of ECSS didn't even review management accounts. And now it's just reviewing them quarterly. This is a company that is in an overspend situation. It should be reviewing its management accounts monthly. And I am frightened, frankly, that the people opposite think that quarterly accounts is good financial management and that management accounts are red tape. The other thing that worries me about the statements made opposite is that audit has given the company a clean bill of health and audit has found no problems with governance. I presume they're referring to the external auditors' reports on the annual accounts. Those reports that auditors do, read them carefully. They're very clear. They do not give a company a clean bill of health. They rely heavily on what the directors tell them. They simply assure you that there's no evidence of significant fraud or misstatement. They do not give a clean bill of health, nor do they comment on the governance between the company and its members. That is why we wanted a specific report that looked at their financial management and their governance. If you were to read the management letter, you might find some more issues. I don't know, because that's in exempt papers. But it doesn't give them a clean bill of health. So please understand that, because you're running this company effectively. You are observers on the board, and you need to know what information you're being given. An audit report on the statement of accounts is not a clean bill of health.
Thank you, councillor Kane. With no further indications to speak, I'm going to go to the seconder of the motion, which was councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. I'll touch on a few points and again, try to keep in your good books. There's three reasons for needing this increase as I can see it. One is the NJC pay award was above that which was budgeted for, the 4%. Agency costs overspend because we needed a lot more agency staff to actually run the service, which most residents look upon as being a good service. And also increased servicing costs of the ageing fleet. I mean, we've now got 16, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've got 16 new Super Duper, 10, sorry, okay, I've inflated it. We've got 10 new vehicles, which obviously running cost wise are going to cost a lot less. We do set a robust budget, and yes, it's a challenging budget, and obviously if pay increases are higher, then we're going to need to increase the management fee. I heard at another place on Tuesday, they said a robust budget, but then received more money from government. And rather than actually pulling what they were going to do back, they relaxed the purse strings with some of their members commenting how wonderful it's able to spend more money on education. Yes, we all want to spend that, but they missed totally the point of what they were trying to do with their robust budget. Touching on the audit report, yes, external auditors comment on the going concern of the company. They do touch on that, and it is a going concern, and it gives a true and fair view of the company. Admittedly, it's the company as at 31st of March 2023, but also they do look to make sure that the company is going to be able to carry on to the next balance sheet date, which is another part of the requirements. So it is lean and mean. And in terms of management accounts, certainly since I've been an observer on the board, I've asked questions at each of the board meetings about the accounts, and I think there is quite a stringent review of that. So I do commend this recommendation to council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Quite some time ago, it seems, we were presented this motion by councillor Huffer, who we now call on, please, to respond.
In the interests of brevity, I don't really have much more to contribute. I think everybody has said very articulately how I feel about this situation, is that we now need to approve this potential extension of up to £200,000 to ensure that our waste service can continue its good work. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We've had another request for a recorded vote. So on that, and we're now on the substantive motion, I'll pass over to Tracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So you're now voting on the motion as the recommendations in the report. When I call your name, can you say whether you're voting for, against, or abstaining? Councillor Akinwale. Against. Councillor Ambrose Smith. For. Councillor Bailey.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Bovingdon.
For.
Councillor Kane.
Against.
Councillor Colbert.
Against.
Councillor Dupre.
Against.
Councillor Edwards. Councillor Goldsack.
For.
Councillor Goodall.
For.
Councillor Holtzman.
Against.
Councillor Huffer.
For.
Councillor Hunt. Councillor Inskip. Councillor Lay.
For.
Councillor Miller.
4.
Councillor Pettit. 4. Councillor Sharp.
4.
Councillor Trapp.
Against.
Councillor Velikov.
4.
Councillor Wade.
Against.
Councillor Wilson.
Against.
So the motion is carried by 14 votes in favour to 9 against.
Thank you, members. The time by the clock in front of me says 5 to 8. So what I'm proposing before we start the next item is to take a 15-minute break here. We will start again at exactly 10 past. And I mean exactly 10 past. Thank you very much. So just, thank you, Karen. Right, we will continue then as we move on to item 15, the East Cambs Trading Company loan deadline extension request. And again, this is to Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Due to delays in the NHS handing over land at the MOD site, ECTC will no longer be able to complete work at the site in line with the timetable forecast when the loan facility was originally approved. Members are therefore asked to extend the period of the loan facility by 12 months to March 2027 to allow this work to be completed before the loan facility needs to be repaid. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. And the proposer for this,
Happy to
please?
propose.
Anna Bailey, and the seconder?
I'm happy to second, reserve my right.
Thank you. Would you like to present the motion?
Very briefly, I hope this is a very simple, straightforward matter, and I'm pleased to propose the request to extend the date of repayment of the loan from ECDC to ECTC. The need for this has arisen, as Ian said, because the NHS at the Princess of Wales Hospital needs to continue to use East Cambs Trading Company's land for temporary parking for longer than originally anticipated. And both ECTC and the council wish to continue to support our NHS colleagues in their endeavours to improve facilities at the hospital site. And this means delaying the start of our own plans for new homes on the MOD site, hence the need to extend the timing of the loan. So I hope that everybody feels happy to support it.
Thank you very much. Did the seconder reserve the right? Okay, anybody want to speak on the matter? Then I think your right has been reserved for now.
I've nothing to add, Chairman.
With that, I'm not seeing anybody against this. Everybody in agreement for me to carry this unanimous? I'm seeing nods all round, so that is indeed done. Thank you very much, members. If only the next one could be as quick. Item 16, the council tax review and capital budgets. Who's going to present it?
Ian Smith.
Of course it's Ian. I can see Ian right there. Ian Smith, please. Thank you, Ian. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Council is asked to approve the 7 recommendations as detailed in paragraph 2.1 of the report, including the council tax resolution as detailed in Appendix 1 and the council's budget as in Appendix 2 to 5 of the report. The council tax resolution, Appendix 1, was circulated to members after the original dispatch of the agenda, as we did not have information from all our preceptors at the time the agenda was dispatched. When the draft budget was reported to Finance and Assets Committee on the 23rd of January, we were still awaiting for the final local government finance settlement and the business rates information from our NNDR1 return. This information has now been published and is included in the papers in front of you. I've also made a few other changes as additional information has come to light between the 2 meetings. These include now including the capital and revenue costs of the crematorium project, as discussed earlier this evening, increased car parking fees at Angel Grove, and increased members' allowances following the independent remuneration panel report. This updated information, especially that in relation to business rates, in net terms has made a positive impact from the position reported to Finance and Assets Committee. The surplus savings reserve requirement to balance the 24-25 budget, reducing from 2.027 million to 1.567 million. The council, via the use of its surplus savings reserve, has a balanced budget for 24-25 and 25-26, and thus does not need to make any immediate changes to service delivery. This is without the need to increase the council's element of council tax in 24-25, this for the 11th consecutive year. However, council does continue to have significant savings requirement in years 3 and 4 of the NTFS, so it does need to be considering how this gap is to be bridged in order to achieve a balanced budget in those years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ian, and thanks very much for your hard work on this as well from the chair. I know the hours that you must put in for this, so thank you very much. Going to move for the proposer of this, please.
Delighted to propose the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey, and seconded. That's you, Julia. Okay, thank you. Okay, back to the proposer to put the motion.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And as I say, I am completely chuffed to bits to be proposing this budget. I do enjoy this time every year. I've done it for a number of years, too many years now, I think probably. But in doing so, I note that we're one of only 38 councils in the country, 381 nationally, that still has no external borrowing. And that is very significant because there are councils not far away from ours that are spending huge percentages of their revenue on servicing debt. We're not doing that. And in fact, we receive interest from the trading company. Yes, we're proposing to freeze council tax for the 11th year. So for Band D property, our share of council tax bills will remain once again at £142.14, and that's the 11th year in a row. And I'm really proud that we're the only district, county or unitary authority in the country not to have put up council tax in 11 years. And this is at a time when many other local authorities are increasing their council tax by the maximum amount possible. And as Ian has said, the budget is currently balanced for the next 2 years, which has been a model that has stood us in very good stead and gives us time to address future budget gaps. There are no cuts or efficiency targets built into this budget. Importantly, the staff establishment is budgeted in full. No doubt we'll discuss that later with the amendment that's coming. And there is significant additional funding for waste service for the waste service for inflation, environmental improvements and new fleet. We now know that we'll be implementing a separate weekly food waste collection, and we're grateful to the government for capital and revenue funding for this. And that does now allow us to redesign the rest of our waste and recycling service around this decision. And we factored in funding for black wheelie bins in this budget. And our aim with the new configuration will be to increase our already great recycling rate even further. It also includes increases for our internal drainage boards for the very important work that they do, funding for the new local plan, which we hope to embark on later in the year. A new website, the website is in need of overhaul, and there's increasing numbers of people engaging with the website, so it's important that that's doing the hard work that it can. There's financing for East Cambs Trading Company for the Eden Square development at Paradise, and phase 2 and 3 at the MOD site. There are no assumptions of dividends from East Cambs Trading Company once again, but of course significant benefits have arisen from having East Cambs Trading Company, 4.2 million to date, and expected to rise by around another million by the end of the financial year. And that's income from Ely markets, a reduction in costs of maintaining parks and open spaces, through new income, and quite considerable new income. I think it's a third of income that is now received externally by the Parks and Open Spaces team. It's interest income and income from our property activity, of course. And we have unearmarked reserves standing at 10%, which is higher than many other local authorities locally. So I'm really proud to propose the budget, and I thank again our officers, all officers of the council, and particularly the management team once again for their very careful stewardship of local taxpayers' money.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. I have reserved the right, seconder. I'm going to open the debate now to anybody that wants to speak.
Amendment.
So we're going to go to the amendment. I do apologise. I'm hung up in my words here.
Councillor Dupre.
So we have an amendment offered. Apologies, Councillor Dupre. Would you like to put the amendment?
Thank you, Chair. The budget amendment we're proposing this evening addresses a number of priorities facing this council. Firstly, it removes funding from the administration's unpopular and unwanted crematorium, releasing £9 million to enhance our villages, towns and this city, and removing the legal and financial risks associated with the project. Secondly, it sets the council on the road to proper parking enforcement. East Cambridgeshire is the only council in England, apart from Wealden and the Isles of Scilly, which has neither implemented civil parking enforcement nor has any plans to do so. Meanwhile, vehicles are illegally parked all over the district. The council's arm twisting of the police to invent its own scheme to tackle this menace is not only proving spectacularly unsuccessful in getting off the ground, it's also a grotesque waste of police time. Thirdly, it doubles the funding for environmental activity by this council. The need is huge for clean energy generation, domestic retrofit, increased biodiversity and more. Community enthusiasm is growing with a number of parishes really stepping up, and I would particularly like to congratulate Witchford in this respect. £100,000 a year is plainly insufficient, and doubling this sum is only a start, but it would create more opportunities for match funding, shared projects, cross-council initiatives, promotional activities, and work with partners. And fourthly, it sets some aside to support parish councils and community groups in sourcing grant funding, enough to cover the cost of an officer to advise on funding opportunities and help write bids, with a residual amount for small grants. We propose to fund this through setting a prudent expectation of savings in vacant council posts. We do not propose a council tax increase in the district portion of the council tax. I've said that slowly and I will say it again. We do not propose a council tax increase in the district portion of the council tax. And we believe ours, finally, Chair, to be the right budget for East Cambridgeshire. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor De Pey.
Chairman, point of order. The amendment proposes to negate a decision of council in relation to the crematorium project. I would just seek advice that that's valid.
I'm interested in it. I'll just take some advice on that.
I believe the Constitution states you can't negate a decision of council made in the last 12 months.
I'm going
but
to
not
take
entirely
a very as quick as it needs to be adjournment. We've just had a break and we're back for a debate, but we need to consult with officers on this. Thank you. Apologies, Karen, if you Okay, as a result of the adjournment, I'm going to ask the CEO of the council to make a statement.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and apologies for the delay. Can I also thank Councillor Vellacott for raising the issue and Councillor Bailey and Dupre for joining us for our deliberations. It is an unusual position. What we have concluded is that clearly the Liberal Democrat amendment was put together in all good faith, and it rightly did not presume the outcome of the crematorium vote. But we are now in a position where we have supported the previous agenda item in relation to the crematorium vote. Nevertheless, given that this amendment was put in good faith and that both parties wish to obviously facilitate a full discussion, both of the amendment and the motion, the way forward is to suspend standing orders, which requires 50% of members being present, which we count, and that 2/3 of members present vote to suspend standing orders. That will allow us to proceed with the amendment and then the motion. So, Chairman, you need to put in, someone needs to propose. I think Councillor Bailey is happy to suspend.
So I've got Councillor Bailey to propose it. And Councillor Dupre to second that proposal, and we have a show of hands to suspend. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, if you have. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Rule 20.
Yeah.
So on that matter, then we resume the debate on the amendment.
Thank you, Chair.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. I think we were at the point where the amendment had been proposed. We've accepted the second and reserved the right. So we are in the debate on the amendment on this. Would anybody like to speak? I'll just give you a few seconds to gather yourselves. Councillor Vellacott, kick us off, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I have nothing to say on the amendment. I just want to apologise to members, officers and any members of the public and press for the delay.
It was probably the cleanest and best stand up and call a motion that I've seen. So thank you for it and for being that diligent. Anybody else want to speak on the amendment, please? Councillor Hunt.
Yes, I'd just like to say I think we should be fully aware of what the Liberal Democrat motion amendment rather implies. I understand from Fendon District Council, who wanted to install civil parking enforcement, that they've been told that they've got to put all the lines and signs in legal state before that can happen, and they've got to pay for it. So there is a hidden time bomb under there. I wouldn't agree with parking and civil parking enforcement anyway, but just so you know, there's a time bomb there in cost to this council should that go through.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Trapp.
Am I speaking to the amendment then?
You are speaking to the
Thank you very
amendment,
much.
sir. Thank you.
It's to do with civil parking enforcement, and at a meeting last Saturday, where our wonderful MP was having a session, and Councillor Vellacott was there. There was a very impassioned speaker there who was trying to engage us to look at civil park enforcement, and she had done quite a bit of research. And for instance, in Mildenhall, which is about the same size as Soham, they get about £20,000 in fines annually. So it isn't actually a cost-free exercise. I mean, we actually get some money from this. And also, and it's very clear, she had photographs of really bad parking in Soham, including someone parking for 18 hours in a parking bay, which is said half an hour. And she had the photographs for that. I went to get my coffee from the Silver Oak for the planning committees when I give out coffee to all and sundry, although I don't have many takers for this. One car on the high street was parked at 45 degrees because the space was too narrow. So yeah, we just park it there. And at the same time, a fire engine was coming by and it just scraped through. It was slowly going forward. And then someone else parked on the other side of the street on the bollards. So it is something that we ought to be providing a service for our residents. And there might be a cost to this. We provide things like litter bins, and we pay for the upkeep and the removal of litter from the litter bins. It's something that, and this is something that is haunting a lot of residents. So, and it's not only in Ely, it is also, as it is in Soham, it is also in Bottisham and other places. So I think this is something we really ought to be thinking about. And I don't think that the proposal of helping the police is actually correct, because the police are far more, they need to be engaged in much more technical things than looking at civil parking enforcement. So I would say we ought to be actually looking deeply at a scheme that helps our residents, provides some help for illegal parking and overstaying at parking bays. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trapp. Not seeing any other oh, right, here they come. Right, okay. Councillor Inskip just won that race. Then I'll come to Councillor Wilson, Councillor Holt.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up actually on civil parking enforcement because the first call I got at 9:45 today was from a resident was on this exact issue, and time again people raise the issue of parking enforcement in East Cambridgeshire with me, and so it is a real concern from residents, and it's been a concern that we've raised constantly over the past 3 or 4 years, that civil parking enforcement is the answer. And as Councillor Dupre has already outlined, there are only 2 other councils in the country, one the Isles of Scilly, where, to be honest, parking isn't a huge issue. There aren't a large number of motor vehicles. There aren't any other councils that either have already adopted or aren't going down this path. Now, yes, you do have to get the signs into good shape and to get the W yellow lines clearly there so that people know that they're parking illegally, and that is allowed for in the budget amendment. We put the sums in that would require, but that's not a bad thing anyway. But fundamentally, the problem is this is something that we know the police don't think have a clear view on their priorities, and this drops off at the bottom of their list. And I think it's interesting to look at the minutes of the road safety PSV discussion at the Force Change Board in November that were released as on an FOI request. And although the name is redacted, just to quote from that, it concludes that the solution for the district council, this is East Cambs District Council, is to decriminalise parking, and any decision involving the police outside of that solution should be considered short term. And another of the participants, name redacted as well, says is happy to have the conversation with the leader of the council and the CEO of the council on that point. We know that civil parking enforcement works. We know that's the solution. We know from clearly from that discussion that where the views of the Cambridgeshire Constabulary lie. We need to take this problem seriously. We need to respond to residents, and we need to stop looking at schemes that simply aren't going to fly. And even as I said, from that the proposal that was being talked about, it's any proposal to use volunteers should be seen as a short-term solution. And of course, the conclusion from that board minutes is that they primarily want to focus on speed watch, not on parking enforcement. So that's why we're pushing this angle. Another key aspect I just want to talk about in the amendment is what we're doing about the climate emergency. We have an environment plan, and I think all sides of us actively contribute to that each year, and it goes through review. But we only have each budget year £100,000 set aside for that. A large part of that gets consumed just in the officers' time, which and paying for officers who are supporting the plan, which leaves very little that the council can actively do, and those officers can actively do from a resource perspective. And that's why we're looking to double that. We really think that if we can double the amount that we're spending on the environment plan, we provide more resources and more opportunities for officers to do more and to accelerate the plans that we're bringing forward. So, you know, those are just two aspects of this amendment that we're proposing. But certainly for me, tackling the climate emergency and helping to boost that, and also responding to residents' concerns about parking enforcement in East Cambridgeshire are two key reasons why I'm happy to support this amendment.
Thank you, councillor and Skip. Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to back up the point about the parking. It isn't an Ely problem alone. There's parking problems on double yellow lines in our outside schools, all over, in every village. And the police will never, ever be able to deal with those. And if we have one person who's going to be doing it, they'll be doing it in Ely, and we'll perhaps clear Fore Hill. But Hadnam High Street will still suffer from parking. And the problem of having to pay for extra, lines and signs, jolly good. We need the signs properly clear, and so that people who genuinely do want to follow the rules will at least see what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to be doing. The other point we've got in our resolution, which I would like to emphasise, is helping parish councils and community groups source grant funding. There's a lot of grant funding out there available to parishes, and perhaps a parish like Hadnam, which has got enthusiastic people who are experiencing claiming grants, can cope. But there are many smaller parishes which really don't have the resources and really need some help, and might have a project in mind which they can't see us ever getting. And this will provide, if it's funded from outside, it will provide better facilities for East Cam residents without the cost to either East Cams or the parishes. So it'd be a really useful thing to provide them with a little backup and make sure that they actually get these grants. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Wilson. Councillor Holton.
Councillor Wilson already has said that very eloquently.
I thank you for your comment. Thank you very much, and well respected. Councillor Sharp, has somebody said what you're going to say before?
Thank you, Chairman. Unfortunately for you, no. I've got 2 points, basically. The first one is looking at the amendment is effectively is proposing a £400,000 increase in expenditure, because what it's doing is increasing the funding on for the 100,000 on parish councils, and I'll come back to that in a minute. The environment fund from 100,000 to 200,000, and then 200,000 on civil parking enforcement. It's funding that by what I consider to be distorting clean and good accounting by reducing the by bringing in a vacancy factor. So effectively, we've got a £400,000 increase here in spend. Touching on the vacancy factor, as I spoke at County Council, I don't agree with that way of doing it. I think that from an accounting point of view is wrong, because it's just smoke and mirrors. The second thing I want to touch on is in terms of civil parking enforcement. And Councillor Trapp mentioned about Mildenhall getting £20,000, but it doesn't work on towns. That will be part of West Suffolk. So we need to know what West Suffolk are getting across the piece. I remember I sit on Highways and Transport Committee at County Council, and I remember back in July 2021, Huntingdonshire District Council wanted to do civil parking enforcement, as did Fenland. South Cams were lagging behind. We are nearly 3 years along, and we're at least a year away from CPE for many of those districts. What the ruling administration at county have done is that they've got all of the lines done for South Cams at the expense of the GCP. They're asking, as Councillor Hunt said, Fenland to spend about nearly £1 million on lines. I think Huntingdonshire have got a lot to spend, and that's part of the hidden cost. So yes, we do need to get parking resolved in the district. I'm not against that, we do. But I don't see this as the way forward. And finally, touching on the parish funding, I agree with Councillor Wilson. Yes, we need to try and get some grants for parish councils, but £100,000 seems a lot for that. But, I'm not against getting grants or help. I certainly try to help I've got 11 parishes, try and point them in the right direction if I can. But, yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. With that, we're going to come to the seconder of the amendment, Councillor Kane.
Thank you, Chair. As Councillor Sharp alluded to, parking is a problem. Residents in Bottisham are fed up with waiting for action to be taken against unsafe and illegal parking in their village. And they're not alone. Disabled people who want to park and find their spaces taken up by vehicles not displaying blue badges. Pedestrians trying to cross when there are cars parked on double yellow lines, obscuring their sight of oncoming traffic, causing traffic to bottleneck, making crossing unsafe. The police haven't got time to address this, and the council's idea of a voluntary scheme is still not in place. It's time East Cambs provided our residents with this service. Yes, it will cost money to set it up, and we've put that in our budget. It will then possibly cost money to run. It depends whether the fines will cover it, but it's not meant to bring in income. It's meant to stop people parking in ways that are illegal and unsafe. It's meant to make our roads safer for pedestrians, cyclists. It's meant to give access to people with disabilities. It's an important thing, and our residents are getting very, very frustrated at the fact that the police haven't got time to do it and the district council refuses to do it. And that's why we've put the money in this budget to introduce civil parking. As we've heard, we recognised a climate emergency in 2019, and we need to act on that with real urgency. I'm not suggesting doubling the budget is sufficient, but it's a good start, and you don't want to suddenly throw too much money at something before officers and the community are ready. So doubling it is a good start because it will get more activities going. And then I suspect in future years, we'll be putting budget amendments to put yet more money into it because the climate emergency is happening. It's only a few days ago we had that heavy rain and saw roads flooded and lots of individuals flooded. We have to address these problems. Voluntary groups, they provide a lot of facilities and support across the district, and they often need money and they haven't got time to go hunting around for grants because they're busy delivering the facilities and support. And if we had an officer, that would help them to continue or even grow their services. 100k, we're told, is a lot. But that's not just for the officer, that's for a small grant pot, because a lot of these grants require some matching funding. For example, the landfill ones, you have to put 10% in. So if we can help those groups with the matching funding, then they can bring in to our district significant sums of money and provide really good, valuable services. So yes, this costs £400,000. And we are proposing to fund that through a vacancy factor. A vacancy factor is a perfectly normal thing to do in a budget. A budget is an estimate of what you think you're realistically going to spend in the following year and what you need money for. So you calculate your full staff costs, and then you accept that in the course of things, people will leave. And it's very, very rare that you manage to recruit a replacement in the person's notice period. So you have a vacancy. So you make sure that your budget takes account of that so that your salary budget is a realistic budget, not an inflated budget that prevents you from delivering much needed services across the district. So I commend this amendment. I think it would make the budget much stronger and it would provide our citizens and residents with a much better service from this council.
Thank you, Councillor Kane. So as the proposer of the original motion, I'll go back to Councillor Bailey to respond.
Thank you, Chairman. It's pleasing to note that the Lib Dems support the Conservative Council tax freeze, although I suspect they'll vote against it too. What is disappointing, though, is that the Lib Dems, who've been screaming about future years' budget gaps for many years, are seeking to increase the gap in year 4 with their amendment. And their spending plans require building in £400,000 of vacancy lag, which is absolutely the wrong thing to do. It means it puts a target on our officers to delay recruitment of staff that we need to deliver services to our residents. That's completely wrong. And Lib Dems yet again trying to bring in civil parking enforcement, using CIL, which is meant for community infrastructure, to pay for the county council's failings to maintain lines and signs on our highways is absolutely outrageous. In Fenland, 80% of the lines and signs are not up to standard. Why should East Cam's taxpayers' money be spent cleaning up after the Lib Dem-led county council failures instead of upgrading village halls, etc.? Of course, it's the Lib Dem-led county council which is stopping the implementation of civil parking enforcement in Fenland because they're actually demanding that Fenland takes on the financial burden of future maintenance of lineage and signage. That is outrageous. It's an unsigned cheque. We have no idea about the future cost of that. Do the East Cams Lib Dems really think that district council taxpayers should take on the financial burden of maintaining highways in the future? And 600,000 is woefully inadequate for the capital costs of civil parking enforcement. The cost in Fenland is just under £1 million and rising to date. And East Cams is geographically bigger than Fenland, so you can expect the bill to be more. So 600 grand isn't going to cut it, I'm afraid. And £40,000 revenue cost is absolutely ridiculous. Previous work of this council has shown many years ago, so it will be more now, that there's likely to be a significant deficit cost of running civil parking enforcement of hundreds of thousands of pounds per annum, which is why there'd be pressure to bring in car parking charges in the council-owned car parks. The cost of enforcement activity in our own council-run car parks is just short of £50,000, and that's based on 1.3 full-time equivalents. And we know that we need at least 4 members of staff to make on-street enforcement anywhere near effective. And I'm afraid the expectations of all this activity in Bottisham and every single village every single day are just pie in the sky. Car parking enforcement officers in rural areas do not cover their costs. That is shown time and time again. And the Lib Dem proposals, therefore, just do not add up. And that fact is acknowledged by the Liberal Democrat chairman of highways at the county council, where it's been agreed to bring in car parking charges in the villages of South Cambridgeshire when the money from the GCP runs out. Car parking charges on the streets in the villages of South Cams. Is that what we want to see in East Cams on top of our charges in our car parks? I don't think so. Free parking is utterly incompatible with civil parking enforcement, and free parking will end under this Liberal Democrat proposal, I assure you. The Lib Dems haven't said what they want to spend an additional £100,000 on for our Environment Fund. They made this proposal last year, and I don't recall them putting forward any concrete proposals for additional expenditure throughout last year at committee level for things they wanted to do that we needed extra money for. Had they done so, we could have happily, and we would have done, taken those away and considered how we could make those work. Our environment plan is incredibly well evidenced, and it talks about reaching real net zero, not pretend net zero, and shows us as a council reaching net zero by 2036, which is well ahead of many councils. And members may like to know that I've also lobbied the Combined Authority to provide £50,000 to this authority to fund activity relating to our new biodiversity responsibility. And I'm happy to say that that was included in the budget that was passed in January. So we already have an extra 50k coming. And finally, we've already got a fantastic team that provides help and support to parish councils and community groups to source grant funding from third parties. They do it incredibly well. I've referred a number of groups to them. And of course, many projects have access to CIL and our existing grant schemes. And in addition, of course, parish councils have no restrictions on how they can spend their considerable CIL funds. And they've been given £5.7 million by this council to date.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. I should have said before the start, so forgive me for that. But on both the amendment and the main substantive motion, should we go there, are recorded votes. Okay, so no need for a request of that. So we're there. So with that, we're at the vote on the amendment. And as it's a recorded vote, I'm going to bring Tracy in. He's also been very busy tonight. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Chairman. So you're voting on the budget amendment. When I call your name, can you say whether you're voting for, against or abstaining? Councillor Akinwale.
For.
Councillor Christine Ambrose Smith.
Against.
Councillor Bailey.
Against.
Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Bovingdon.
Against.
Councillor Kane.
For.
Councillor Colbert.
For.
Councillor Dupre.
For.
Councillor Edwards.
Against.
Councillor Goldsack.
Against.
Councillor Goodell.
Against.
Councillor Holtzman.
For.
Councillor Huffer.
Against.
Councillor Hunt.
Against.
Councillor Inskip.
For.
Councillor Lay.
Against.
Councillor Miller.
Against.
Councillor Pettit.
Against.
Councillor Sharp.
Against.
Councillor Trapp.
For.
Councillor Vellacott.
Against.
Councillor Wade.
For.
Councillor Wilson.
For.
So the amendment is lost by 9 votes in favour to 14 against.
Okay, with that, then we go back to the substantive motion and it's back to the leader. You've spoken on the motion, so we'll go to straight into. So open to debate on the motion. Anybody want to speak to the motion itself? Councillor Vellacott.
Thank you, Chairman. I won't be long. I just wanted to say I spoke with Ian recently about the budget, and then I went away and I compared it to other Cambridgeshire councils. And it really, this is my first budget meeting. It truly is remarkable. We can justify without undue digging every single line of our revenue and capital budgets and our reserves, and we can balance our budget successfully 2 years in advance while still remaining prudent. We can also keep car parking free, and I won't repeat that discussion, but our charges as well are as low as practicable and the service is still at the highest quality. It only uses surplus savings from previous years, which leaves all of our other reserves intact for other projects. I kept looking, quite honestly, for a catch or a shortcut, but the truth is the council is simply just very irresponsible with public money, and it treats every pound as important. But I want to focus on something which I expected to be a little bit more prevalent. We're passing this budget today again without raising council tax. It's not a party political tool, nor is it just another income column in our budget reports. Some councils seem to think it is. It's the earnings of our hardworking residents, which is a precious resource this council can choose to spend in a proportion of our choosing. And so if we can deliver what is admittedly an exceptional service for residents this year without asking for more than we need, then we should do so. Every pound is earned and every pound is important. And the fact, I can't believe this, the fact we're the only authority in the UK to achieve it for 11 years straight without compromising our service showcases the enormous dedication and innovation at this council. I thank every single officer for their involvement with that. And with this budget, my residents will get prudence, innovation and efficiency whilst saving them at least one authority raising their tax. We're proving to everyone around us that when you commit to it, you can and you should have both. It's a privilege to support it tonight.
Any other speakers? Councillor Dupre.
Thank you. The reasons why we do not support this budget are in many respects the mirror image of our amendment. The colossal wasted opportunity of spending £9 million on an unwanted crematorium and the ongoing risks of its operation, the years of waste of council and police time to not solve the problem of illegal parking, the under-resourcing of action on the environment. Frankly, every budget we have seen from the administration is a work of fiction, while every area of the council's operations is stretched thin. This is not what the residents of East Cambridgeshire deserve, and it's not what they voted for, with more electors in the district voting Liberal Democrat than Conservative in the last election. We will vote against this budget in the interests of East Cambridgeshire and its residents. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just a short comment, just to, I think Councillor Vellacott missed Appendix 5. So you'll see we do charge for parking, and it lists there, for example, the parking charges in Angel Drove, which are going up by 33% in the proposal before us. If he votes for that tonight, he'll be voting for a 33% increase in the parking at Angel Drove, 33% increase in parking at the Dock. So I hope that's helpful for him to be aware of that before he casts his vote.
Thank you. Councillor Trapp.
Thank you very much. I'm always slightly perplexed by the reserve accounts. I've identified 14 lines in the reserve accounts, which don't change from year to year. They start off at 2023, 23, 24, and exactly, in some cases, actually then increase. And sometime I would like to have a little session, perhaps with the finance officer, direct finance, to say, where can we spend this money? Why are we having all these reserve accounts, which we don't touch? And I think that should be something we ought to be looking at.
I thank you for your contribution, Councillor Trapp. I would remind all members in here that all officers are perfectly approachable, and you're welcome to have that time and make that appointment and have that and use their time. And I'm sure they'll give you that advice and clearance. But thank you for your contribution. Is there anybody else that wants to contribute to the debate? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. I want to commend this budget to the council because I think it's a responsible budget produced by a good Section 151, produced in conjunction with a good Section 151 officer from members who have contributed to the policies, which is slightly different to what I encountered on Tuesday, where we had an officer-led budget which members of the joint administration just went along with. I fully support the budget and look forward to supporting it. And one final thing, again on reserves, yes, as the chair says, speak to the officers because reserves, some of those reserves could be used. But I know it's frustrating in opposition because we put forward a similar amendment to spend £22 million extra from usable reserves on Tuesday for highways and potholes, but that got turned down. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't believe, oh yes, Councillor Holton.
I would just like to make a point on what the leader of the council said about the Lib Dems not making sensible suggestions about actions on the environment in the operations committee. From how I recall our sessions is that we had across the board very convivial and I think agreeable conversations to say that we would like to do more, but our last action plan, despite the fact that it had quite a lot of stuff in, could not expand it because we did not have the budget. And despite the fact that we agreed that it would be very nice to have a forward-going plan to decide on how to decarbonize, for example, council assets, that was not something that we could implement in that form at that point in time. I understand that these conversations are difficult and that budgets are what they are. I would just like to say that we definitely try to bring forward new ideas. And if there is budget, we would still hope that we can make better progress on the environment.
Thank you, Councillor Holtzman. Councillor Sharp.
Sure.
That's a hat trick. Well done, sir. Okay. With that, then we're going to go to the seconder of the motion, which is Councillor Huffer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I will be mercifully brief. So many positive points: balanced budget, no external borrowing, black wheelie bins, weekly food collection, new local plan. We agree on council tax. Public civil parking parking enforcement. I can't speak today. Civil parking enforcement is never going to work in this district. There's just too many greenfields. Councillor Trapp mentioned that Mildenhall is bringing in income of £20,000. At what cost? How much does it cost to raise that £20,000? And why should the many residents of this district who park with consideration and care pay for those few selfish people who think it's okay to park wherever they want? I don't think that's acceptable. I really don't think that's acceptable. And I'm sure that the situation, dire as it is, will be resolved, I hope, as quickly as possible. But this is a sledgehammer to crack a nut. It really is sledgehammer to crack a nut time. We don't need to do this. We really don't. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And we go back to the proposer of the motion to sum up.
Just a couple of things. I wanted just to address the matter of wasting police time. I mean, the police proposal, which they are agreed on carrying out a pilot, which is the discussion that we had always had, which is new roles called road safety police volunteers. And the proposal is that they are going to implement this with the use of special constables who have fallen out of or are unable to perform the normal duties of special constables. There are quite an army of special constables in Cambridgeshire that they are very keen to use, who are unable to carry out normal special constable duties. And I don't think it's right to call it a waste of time to get those people involved in making our roads safer, which is what the plan encompasses and always did. And that's through speeding enforcement. It's through education activity, going into schools, talking to parents at the school gates, that kind of activity. And it will also, in its first phase, include dangerous car parking, so enforcement around dangerous car parking. And if this pilot is a success, and I really hope it is, because having a new resource focused on road safety is a fantastic coup for East Cambs. It's not happening anywhere else in Cambridgeshire, and I think we should absolutely embrace this proposal. And if and when it's successful, that is when they will consider rolling it out to more normal car parking enforcement and also taking on new volunteers. And actually, I have had 2 people already wanting to sign up to be part of this, 2 members of the public. So I don't think it's right to label it as a waste of police time. This is a new resource that isn't currently being utilised. And just on the reserves, I know Ian would be more than happy to spend time with Councillor Trapp explaining about our earmarked reserves, our unearmarked reserves and our surplus savings reserves. So he'd be very happy to go through all of that. I am really proud of this budget and I do hope that everyone will support it. I know the Liberal Democrats have said they want to support the council tax freeze, so please support our budget and do so.
Thank you very much, members. Thanks for the end of that debate. We're going to go to a recorded vote. So back to you, Tracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So you're now voting on the budget motion as in the agenda papers. Can you say whether you're voting for, against or abstaining? Councillor Akinwale.
Against.
Councillor Ambrose Smith.
For.
Councillor Bailey.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Bovingdon.
For.
Councillor Kane.
Against.
Councillor Colbert.
Against.
Councillor Dupre.
Against.
Councillor Edwards.
For.
Councillor Goldsack.
For.
Councillor Goodall.
For.
Councillor Holtzman.
Against.
Councillor Huffer.
For.
Councillor Hunt.
For.
Councillor Inskip.
Against.
Councillor Lay.
For.
Councillor Miller.
For.
Councillor Pettit.
For.
Councillor Sharp.
For.
Councillor Trapp.
Against.
Councillor Velikov.
For.
Councillor Wade.
Against.
Councillor Wilson.
Against.
So the motion is carried by 14 votes in favour to 9 against.
Thank you again, Tracy, and thank you everybody for that. We're going to move on then to item 17, which is the Constitution Review Working Party Report. This is going to be introduced by Maggie. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Chairman. Agenda item 17 sets out the report of the Constitution Review Working Party. The 2 recommendations contained in my report are those matters put forward by the Constitution Review Working Party and are detailed at paragraph 2.1 at subparagraphs 1 and little 2. Paragraph 2.1 little 1 requests council to agree with the recommendations set out in paragraphs 2.11 to 2.18 of the Constitution Review Working Party report Appendix A. Paragraph 2.1 little 2 requests council to consider the issues set out in paragraphs 2.21 to 2.23 excuse me, of the Constitution Review Working Party report at Appendix A, together with the recommendations set out in Appendix B. Appendix B is appended to the Working Party's report and referred to council at the request of the Working Party. Also understand, Chairman, that there has been a motion and amendment which has been circulated. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. So we will ask for the motion to be put forward, which is councillor Bailey.
Happy to propose the motion as set out in the papers at Appendix B and as circulated separately this evening.
And do you have someone to second the motion?
Happy to second and I reserve my right.
Thank you very much. So we would like the motion put, please.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say a massive thank you to the Working Party because they gave up a lot of time and worked very hard to search for common ground, of which there is much in these proposed changes to the Constitution, and also, of course, officers for their support to the Working Party. Our group have carefully worked through the changes to the Constitution. We had long discussions on it that we're proposing at Appendix B, and just to note that we did give our proposals to the final meeting of the Working Party. So this is familiar territory for all members of the Working Party. So just picking out some of the key changes, the appointment of a lay member to the Audit Committee, is good because it gets us ahead of changes we know are likely to be coming, and is good practice. Clarification on how the Audit Committee can request the attendance of officers, which will be via resolution of the committee, will, I hope, be helpful to a certain colleague opposite. The move of ICT in the environment plan to finance and assets improves the balance of responsibilities of the two policy committees without additional cost and bureaucracy of an additional policy committee and all the complications of making sure that you've got enough members to serve on all of those committees and that they don't clash with audit, etc. Retention of the changes which were made by the Conservatives a few years ago, which gave the right of members of the public and members of the council to be able to ask questions of any member of the council. We want to retain that right. It delivers maximum openness, transparency and accountability. I know there was a lot of concern from our Liberal Democrat colleagues at that time when we brought that in, but actually it has not been an abused facility for people in any way. I know they thought they were bringing it in for devious motives, but we weren't at all. I think it's just right that members of the public can turn up and ask their question and hold an individual member of the council who may have done something in their own ward, and it may be something that they want to congratulate them for, or it may be a moan, but it's right that they can turn up to a full council meeting and hold individual members to account in a public forum. And I don't think it's anything that any member should fear, because when new members join, they always have the right to say, look, I'll come back to you in writing. So yeah, I think we should embrace that. It's open, it's transparent, it's democratic. And I think as well that the adoption of the LGA Model Code of Conduct, I hope that other councils across Cambridgeshire will go down this route. I know many of them are considering doing so, and that will bring consistency across Cambridgeshire. It is sad to me that we're seeing the need for the change for members to have to opt in to have their home address published. But I fear that is a sign of the times that we're living in. And, I think that's probably the right default for us to adopt. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we open the debate on this. We've got an amendment on this, you're right. We've got an amendment on this. So I'll come to Councillor Dupre to put the amendment, please. Yes, please.
Thank you. Constitution working groups are a niche hobby, and I've been working on two over the last few months, and I have very much enjoyed being part of this one, and I would like to thank you personally, Chair, for the way in which you have led it. We considered and deliberated, and the results of our discussions can be divided into three separate categories. The issues we all agreed on, and which are being pursued tonight. The issues we knew we would not agree on and have referred to this meeting, and the issues the working group agreed on, but which appear to have been overturned by higher powers within the Conservative group. The motion before us says, at the conclusion of the review, the Constitutional Review Working Group recommends to the Council to. It recommends no such thing. There are things in there that we did not agree, where we were unanimous in expressing a view against. So I don't think the motion is even factually accurate from the onset. However, being magnanimous, I'm going to start with the issues we agreed on. About 30 years behind most of the rest of the country, we are finally removing gendered language in our constitution. so that the chairman, yourself, Chair, will become chair throughout, the first chair of East Cambs District Council. Hurrah. We have agreed a threshold for officer delegation to determine grants. We have reached a form of words we can live with on advance submission of questions at committee meetings and other minor matters. And we have recommended that this council adopt the Local Government Association Model Code of Conduct for councillors in its entirety. We recognise that we would not agree on the establishment of an additional policy committee to deal with the local plan, strategic planning, environment and climate change, and internal drainage board matters. We on this side believe very strongly that these are weighty issues which need their own committee. We also knew that we would not reach agreement on changes to the audit committee, which we wanted to bring in line with best practice and sit for guidance. The items we achieved unanimity on in the working group, which are now being overturned, were that procuring agency staff should not be exempt from contract procedure rules, which we believe to be a mistake, and that questions from the public and from members should be directed towards councillors responsible for the running of and decisions by the authority. We remain of the view, like most, if not all, other councils up and down the country, that the function of question time at council is to hold the administration of the council to account. I will hold back my rage at hearing the suggestion that no members were pursued through this process. I am acutely aware of members who suffered horribly as a result of the persecution used under this method. I am appalled, I am seething at the self-congratulation in those remarks, but I will restrain myself from further comment. So our amendment firstly takes a clear view on the issues the working group agreed to refer to this meeting, and secondly seeks to restore the unanimous recommendations of the working group that have been overturned by the recommendations from the leader of the council this evening. In particular, we seek to establish an audit committee capable of functioning effectively and doing its job, and to establish an additional policy committee to tackle the weighty planning, climate and environmental challenges facing East Cambridgeshire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre. I think if you reserved your right, thank you very much then. So we open for debate on the amendment. Anyone want to speak to the amendment? Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. I've been wondering, quite a lot over the last few months as to why the Liberal Democrats can't just go and see one of the directors or one of the officers if they've got a problem, if they want to understand something. I do it all the time. I go and see an officer. I ask what's going on about this. Can you explain that? And they do it one-to-one, simple. But it seems to be a fad that's coming from over there. But let's ask all the questions in public. Let's get all the senior officers in. Let's have them all lined up. They've got nothing else to do. They might as well just come here and be lined up. I think this is really quite disgraceful. And of course, then the reason is that it's grandstanding. So they can say, oh, yes. And they stick it on.
Councillor Hunt, sorry. Can you keep to the matter of the Constitution Review Working Party, please?
I was actually going on the amendment.
Okay, well, if you can get to that part of it, thank you.
Okay, well, I understand now that it's just grandstanding and there's not really a desire to have an answer.
Any more speakers on the amendment? No. Oh, John, Councillor Trapp, thank you.
I was a member of the working group, and thank you very much, Chair, for I'm used to the new term, Chair, for your chairing that committee, and I thought that working group, and I thought it worked very well. I am surprised that some items that we actually were in agreement with, a wholehearted unanimous agreement, are now being changed. And I'm sorry that perhaps we should have probably wasted our time. We were going to, I mean, we were unanimous about a lot of the things there. And I'm sorry that we are now trying to say, no, different. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So with nobody else wanting to contribute to the amendment debate, I'll go to the seconder, councillor Kane.
Thank you. I don't intend to repeat what councillor Dupre has said, but many members will know that I have struggled since the inception of the Audit Committee with how it operates, and I detailed earlier on how it had failed to address the issues within ECSS because of the way it was forced to operate. For Councillor Hunt's information, CIPFA is the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy. They are the professional finance body who makes recommendations for local authorities, and they work closely with the government. The government indeed has accepted their recommendations, just hasn't found parliamentary time to make them a legal requirement. So it isn't a fad of those of us over here that we want officers to come to Audit Committee. It is a recommendation of the professional body for public sector finance. And the reason they do it is because it's an audit committee. It's a group of people meeting as a committee to carry out the audit function on behalf of this council. We can all go and do all go and speak to officers individually. But when there are issues at the audit committee, so for example, when the internal auditor comes to the audit committee and tells us that there are gaps in the governance between ECDC and ECSS, it is only sensible that we ask to speak to relevant officers so we can work out how well those gaps are understood, how well the recommendations of the auditor are understood, how quickly and fully they're going to be implemented. But instead, we're not allowed to. So it's really important that we bring the audit committee up to the standards recommended by CIPFA. So that's 2 lay members. We heard from our internal auditor that lay members who are single on a committee find it quite challenging. They prefer to have another lay member with whom they can discuss matters. We want to see a period of 2 years elapse before a member who's been chair or vice chair of a policy committee can be member of the audit committee. Again, a CIPFA recommendation. We want officers to attend, and we want lead members to attend where appropriate. We also want to have the audit committee recommend the statement of accounts to the full council, not approve them, because it's all of our responsibility to set the budget and to approve the accounts. The audit committee can work through them in detail with the auditors and make a recommendation, but it's all of our responsibility to decide whether those accounts are a true and fair view that we're presenting to the public. So this is a really important amendment. It goes back to making sure that what the working group agreed is what we deliver as a council, and it also makes sure that we have an audit committee that we can be proud of and that can do its job properly and prevent problems like we had with ECSS running for so long in the future.
Thank you, councillor Kane. Now go back to the proposal of the original motion, which is councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sorry Councillor Trapp feels that he's wasted his time, and I don't think he has at all. There is much common ground which is recognised in both the main motion and the amendment. The reason that our group decided we wanted to support the officer's request around the contract procedure rules and agency staff is because officers need to be able to recruit the right people with the right skills in a timely manner, and putting that process through the contract procedure rules and procurement, just isn't going to facilitate that. But what we have done is asked our Section 151 officer to implement, safeguards around that process so that line managers and senior officers do sign off those requests. So, we think that that's a good compromise, and I hope you feel that you can support that, having heard that, and I should have explained it earlier, so sorry about that. you know, I feel really strongly about this thing about members of the public having access to their councillors and being able to hold them to account when they need to. If members don't want to answer questions from the public, then I honestly don't think they have any business being a councillor and standing to be a councillor. And as I say, if they're at all concerned about that or anxious about it, they can always give the answer that they will do so in writing so that they can carefully consider their response and do it at a later time. So, you know, if you don't want to answer questions from members of the public, then I'm sorry, you just got no business being here. The audit committee is not a scrutiny committee, and I'm afraid there have been massive attempts to treat it as such. I'm proud of this council for running a committee structure. Not many councils do anymore. And I think it is the most inclusive way for all members to take a role in the running of the council. But it means that scrutiny happens within the committee structure and within committees themselves. That is exactly what it does, and it happens, and you can see it every time a committee meets virtually. And Councillor Kane's concerns about, you know, the audit committee and calling officers. The Constitution, you know, and the main motion will provide for officers to be called to a committee. Our main motion provides for that. But importantly, by resolution of the audit committee, I'm afraid, you know, if certain members opposite had their way, there would be an array of officers being called to every single audit committee to answer endless questions on matters of microscopic detail that would be better facilitated, you know, in a detailed meeting on that subject between, you know, the member that's interested and those officers. Now, of course, the audit committee has a role in holding the executive and the council to account, and that is why it is right that should be the resolution of the audit committee to call officers in. I think there is you know, there was an opportunity this evening for Councillor Kane to put questions of the observers on the Trading Company Board, which, you know, exercises endless airtime at every single audit committee, and yet she didn't exercise that right here this evening, and continues not to do so. She has that right. She can do that if she wants to. But you know, I would remind, you know, members of the council that they are observers. They are just that, and all members of the council have access to board minutes, the Trading Company Board minutes that they can read in detail to understand what's taking place. So I can't support this amendment, I'm afraid.
Thank you. We'll go to the vote on this one then. And with no alternative request, we will go to the old-fashioned show of hands, I think. Yeah. So I will ask for those that are in favour of the amendment then, please. Tracy, you eagle iron. And those against, please.
Oh, sorry, Chairman. The amendment is lost by 8 votes to 14.
Okay, so we're back to the main motion then, and we've had the motion put. The seconder has reserved the right. Would anybody like to speak on the main motion, please? Councillor Dupre, then Councillor Kane.
Thank you, Chair. I've already laid out the areas of agreement and disagreement with the recommendations moved by the Leader of the Council, particularly where these conflict with the unanimous view of the working group. I believe the effect of moving so much significant business to an already busy Finance and Assets Committee is to overload it and prevent some very important issues from receiving the level of consideration they deserve. Members of the Audit Committee will continue to be excluded from membership of the Finance and Assets Committee, whose responsibilities will now be even wider. I believe that it is wrong to exclude members of the Audit Committee from such a large proportion of the Council's work. It is clearly an abuse of council time and resources to insist on using question time at council meetings to quiz members who bear absolutely no responsibility for the decisions of this council about matters that are nothing to do with the council. I hold myself absolutely open to account to my residents. I spend huge amounts of my time answering questions morning, afternoon, evening, and even night from members of the public and from the residents that I serve. How dare the leader of the council suggest otherwise? Finally, we believe that if the audit committee is to be effective, it needs independent representation, and it needs routinely to have at its meetings those officers and councillors who are responsible for decisions of the council, its committees, and its trading companies. While there is much in the outcome of the working group's work that I can warmly welcome, there are also significant proposals here that I cannot support.
Thank you, councillor Dupre. Councillor Kane.
Unfortunately, I can't support it either, and I am genuinely sorry because I know the member who proposed the changes to the audit committee is trying to address issues of concern to me. However, I'm not happy with one lay member. We heard from internal audit the issues with that. We need two, and so one is not enough. The attendance of officers, the mechanism for doing that, well-meaning, I'm sure, but utterly impractical. So what we're saying is that at July's meeting, at the last meeting, when the internal auditor reported that there were gaps in the governance of ECSS, we would have the meeting, take the report, at the meeting, have a committee resolution to bring an officer to the following meeting, and then we'd have to have the debate again, the discussion again, not debate, the discussion at the following meeting. It's just not practical. I have never asked, and I don't believe any other member has asked, for a whole plethora of officers to come to meetings. And I have always given the chair the reason why I wanted them to come to the meeting. So there's not a problem with doing it before the meeting. There's not a problem with it being the expectation. As for ploughing everything into finance and assets, it's just not workable. Those meetings are either going to be incredibly long, or we're not going to give the proper time that those important matters like the local plan and environment actually merit. And I'm particularly cross about changing the contract procedure rules. The reason this has come up is because internal audit discovered that officers were not following the contract procedure rules. Otherwise, this would never have come before us. And now what we're saying is, oh, well, never mind, we'll just change the rules for what you actually do. That is completely wrong. Those were rules that were put in place for good reason, and they shouldn't slow you down because you know what the contract procedures are, and you can have call-off contracts. There are all sorts of ways of addressing them, proper ways that make sure there's transparency about what's going on in employing agency staff. So I can't support this motion, and I'm really disappointed as well that we set up a working group and that working group appears to have worked extremely well and come to unanimous decisions, and then is not allowed to present those unanimous decisions to this council.
Okay, any other speakers on the matter? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. 3 points. First thing is I sit on the Audit and Accounts Committee at County Council, and we have one lay member there, so that seems to work. The second thing is, and I think one of my colleagues mentioned it earlier, there was the opportunity to quiz at the last Operational Services Committee various bits on the management accounts and the management report, which there weren't that many questions there. And the third thing is I can assure Councillor Dupre that the Finance and Assets Committee will thoroughly look at any item that comes before them, as it does already. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Any other speakers on this before we go to the vote? Back to the seconder then, please. Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to echo probably a bit of what Councillor Bailey said earlier. Constitutions place both limitations and obligations on local governmental organisations in their relationship with the people, and they provide opportunities for the public to influence the political process. It's so fundamentally important that people we represent have the ability to ask any member a question, to be able to hold them accountable and to be heard. Any member of the public deserves the respect of being able to ask any member of council a direct question. This motion also does improve our audit committee. An independent, non-voting expert is a welcome additional voice to help inform members on how they can keep improving our governance and risk management process. The committee's terms of reference will be clear that the committee can require the attendance of additional officers by resolution, which is entirely fair. As my first working party at this council, it was a real pleasure to come together in a non-confrontational group, agreeing to all act in good faith when submitting amendments and questions, something of which we have seen evidence of tonight. These amendments are a proportionate compromise and a commitment to express openness and accountability from the administration, which I support.
Thank you, Kelly. We're back to the proposer to
That was
sum up.
very well spoken, thank you. And there were just one or two things that I wanted to address. Councillor Kane's rhetoric seemed to suggest that the working party agreed on everything, and of course it didn't. There were substantial areas where both sides were not in agreement. But correct me if I'm wrong, but members of the working party, but I do believe it was actually Councillor Dupre who wanted to have what we've done tonight, which was a Conservative version and a Liberal Democrat version, rather than, you know, one paper that was put forward. So I think that's why it's been done the way it's been done. Yeah, we have to be clear that questions to members are not just about policy of the council and holding the executive to account. They are and should be so much more than that. They could, for example, be ward specific. So a member of the public may want to come and ask an individual ward member something about their own particular ward, and they should have the right to be able to do that in a public forum. And I accept totally that Councillor Dupre is diligent in her service to her residents. I didn't for 1 second suggest at all that she wasn't. That is not anything that I said at all. But there are times when members of the public want and need to ask their question in a public forum, and they should have the right to do so. And I really feel strongly about that. I can't understand anybody who argues against that. I really can't.
Hey, we're at the point of the vote. And again, I think we're going to do this by a show of hands. So I will ask, first of all those in favour of this working party. Thank you. All those against? And any abstentions?
So it's carried by 14 votes to 8.
Thank you. Members, we have two more items and a short closing statement from myself. So my plan is, despite it being almost another 2 hours and we've had the break, we want to get there. So we want to get there. So thank you for that. Which brings us then to the Cambridge and Peterborough Combined Authority update report. We're looking at 3 agendas here. That's 3 sets of minutes, 3 meetings, September, November and January. Are there any questions to our representations on the Combined Authority? I'm seeing none. Thank you. Will we move on to item 19? Actions taken on the grounds of urgency. This is for noting only. Are there any questions on this or any points that anybody wants to raise? I am seeing none, so we do noted. So just before we close tonight, there's 3 things I want to say. I want to thank the members in general for the behaviour tonight. I think the officers have worked particularly hard, but the members, you work very hard as well, and it should be recognised. And I want to thank you for that. The second thing is, it's a personal thing of mine, but I've heard from both sides of the council tonight talking about the other side, them over there, the others, etc. I'd like to propose moving forward in meetings that one group is the administration, the other group is the opposition. I think that would be a far more convivial way of doing with it. I just think it's cleaner and nicer and helps with the debate. And lastly, if I can put a challenge to the officers moving forward, because it's very unusual to have a few missing tonight at such a key meeting. But I would ask in future diary, could we make sure the diaries are coincided with East Cambridge's school holidays, please? Because I think it's half term this week. And I think if that's possible to do, then we should be making every effort to do. I'm sure we do, but I just think to double check that. So thank you, and I wish you very speed, and the meeting is therefore closed. Karen, thank you very much for your help and support, as with the other officers. Thank you.